Hey guys, and welcome to the very first Out of the Blue podcast. This is the podcast that I decided to start with a bunch of my long-term friends online. It's a PUBG orientated podcast, and also we're going to touch on some fun facts from other games from time to time and just bring you guys into the fold with really what's going on in the life of PUBG and esports in general. And obviously, some of you know me from my work with Unicorn. I'm an ex-professional Counter-Strike player. I played for many years at the top of the scene, and to be honest, I'll let the guys introduce themselves. So first off, we got Anton. How's it going?
Easy, dude. So I'm Anton Davies, aka RastamanFB. I've been a long time CS player, enemy down admin. For those who remember those, I was heavily involved in
Showing your age.
CS, CS and tournaments. I'm old, right? But now, So now I'm just a resident chiller and alcoholic. I've got my beer. So I just like to enjoy talking about stuff, games in general.
Cool. And also joining us is obviously danbear and inMe. Dan, if you could just tell yourself a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. Hi, my name is Dan Cooke. I go by the name of danbear online. I've been playing competitive games for about 15 years, mainly first-person shooters, and ever since PUBG came out, I have been obsessed, and I've been playing an unhealthy amount of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds.
Hooked 1,000 hours or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh dear. No,
it's great, man.
And obviously, last but not least, we got inMe. This is a team that will be joining us pretty much every week. So, Shawn, what have you got to say?
Yeah, so I'm sure Neate, and I go by the name of inMe. Essentially, I started back in the day on a Super Nintendo when I was probably like maybe 4 years old or something like that. Obviously, moving to N64. I've played competitive CS for about 11 years, I think now, and yeah, essentially, I'm sat here with my latte because I'm a posh boy from Hertfordshire. So,
no beer.
No beer today because I was at a festival yesterday, so I'm a little bit tired after I saw Razorlight. So
tired, hungover.
That's the one. That's the one.
No, so for you guys back at home, this is going to be a podcast that's recorded every week on a Sunday or Monday, depending on work and obviously things going on. But we will be producing a podcast every week. That's the guaranteed thing. And also, as time goes on, we're going to look to maybe doing this at live, so you guys will have that interaction with us. You can ask us live questions, and also when we bring on professional players from PUBG, we might even touch on other games, maybe some pro players from Quake from time to time, or CS, depending how that goes. But it just gives you guys a chance to actually interact with them and ask them things that you might not get to do another period of time, right? So that's where we want to go with it. Also, throughout the week, we're going to have set topics pretty much that we cover. And if you guys have got anything that you want to add to this podcast and really get involved with it, then just tweet us. Obviously, you can see our Twitter down there, out of TB. And obviously, we've got our shirts just released now as well. So if you want some of the merch, that's awesome. If not, if you just want to interact with us and sort of just tell us what you want to talk about, then yeah, just tweet at us and we'll do our best to include it within the podcast. But so without further ado, I guess it's time to introduce Liquid Ollywood and obviously Daz FPS, 3rd and 4th at Gamescom. Be interesting to see what they got to say.
Yeah, it's been pretty hectic. Yeah, a lot of changes.
Yeah. Ollie, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, he's waiting for that first-person leaderboard, man, so I can get back on the grind.
Okay, so we're going to touch on that later about first person, obviously third person. It's a big debate in the community right now. Streamers wanting to go with first person, technically, some wanting to go with third. But before we get into that, if you wouldn't mind, obviously, Daz, just giving a little bit of history and Ollywood about yourselves and how you found Gamescom as a whole, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, sure. I'll start then. My name's Daz FPS. I'm from United Kingdom, Newcastle upon Tyne. I've been playing FPS games mostly all my life. I started playing CS back in beta, all the way through 1.3, 1.5, 1.6, Source, CSGO. Then moved on to H1Z1. I played competitive level in H1. And then as soon as Battlegrounds was in Alpha, I got the chance to play it for the first day. And I was hooked ever since. Since it came out in beta, I made the switch from H1 to PUBG, and here I am.
Okay, so you mentioned previously you played H1Z1.
Yeah.
Are you inclined to say which one you prefer?
Wow.
I mean, H1, I feel now, sort of lost its identity. It's not the same H1 that I used to play back in the old days. Z1 map was a lot more fun and diverse, whereas Z2 is a lot more campier and it doesn't really suit the game anymore. At the moment, I'm a PUBG all the way, as I can tell. I don't feel H1 is, soul itself.
Okay. Ollywood?
Yep.
Yeah.
So my name's Oliver, Ollywood. I'm Swedish. Same as Daz, I've been playing games all my life. Coming from a CS background as well. The most recent years, been playing a lot of Overwatch, and prior to starting PUBG, I was playing a ton of Arma 2, DayZ, mod called Day Zero, which had an immense amount of PvP. So that's where my sort of love for the whole PvP aspect of this survival genre came from. And after Arma 2, I started playing Arma 3 BR. Picked up a lot of experience from that, and it's very similar to PUBG. So I guess I had a bit of a head start going into PUBG, and very first game I played back in the beta, I think it was in March, I did manage to win. So I was super excited from the get-go and decided very early on that this is the game, that I want to keep playing.
Yeah. So obviously you guys just, like I say, you came back from Gamescom. How, just give us a feel for what that event was like for you guys, because obviously there was 100 people. Normally, from my experience, we come back from CS, it's like 5-man teams, and there's never 100 people at one time playing in the server, right? So what was it like, just the initial going into the tournament, the setup of it? Did it feel like it's ready for an esport, or what do you feel about that?
I mean, I feel the setup was really well done. We had a lot of space with all our equipment that we were given. Our desk space and such was really decent. It was. I mean, Gamescom's one of the massive, tournaments, events, I should say. It was very, very busy. Some days you couldn't even walk, get past certain points. People just sit in the middle of the aisle. It was pretty. But I mean, the event itself, it was really well worked. Apart from there was a few hiccups in day one, and then since day one was resolved, I feel it went really well. I enjoyed it. It was a great experience.
Yeah, when the last time I was at Gamescom was in like 2010, and I remember trying to get through to the stage. It's absolutely fucking mental, to be honest. Like you're trying to get through, and just people are like, oh, it's just the queues go for miles, right?
Yeah,
it's pretty crazy.
So, Ollie, do you want to add anything to the event itself? How you found it, or?
Yeah, sure. So it was my first time in Germany, first time at Gamescom as well. I haven't been at anything of that scale before, so it was a bit crazy to see all the people. But the tournament itself, I felt it went really well. I got a bit upset in day 3. I think it was the first person duos. I don't know if there were server issues or.
Yeah, I think we all got upset by that.
Yeah, there was a lot of restarts. I think they had 3 restarts in day 3, which that was hard to deal with, because the starts are really important in PUBG. So me and Hayes, the guy I was playing with from my team, we all had really good starts. In every single game that got restarted. So we had to. We were struggling, I guess, to stay motivated, and yeah.
Like the thing is, as well, I saw Ninja tweet about that. I think.
Oh yeah,
they also got
furious.
Some 6 start.
Yeah.
And tweeted a picture with him with like a Car 98 level 3, and obviously Chippy as well. Similar sort of setup, and he was this. But
yeah, I mean, it happened with me and my partner as well. Like when the first restart, we were fully decked out. I had level 3 helmet, level 3 armor. I had all the ammo in the world. I had all my meds that I needed to win the game. And then the first game that counted, I couldn't even find a helmet between 8 compound. Not one helmet between us. and so we got a 2-seater motorcycle driving to other places. Everyone had places, so we couldn't find anywhere to go with the loot. So we drove past full speed, and I get one shot off the back of the motorcycle instantly, just one shot.
That was me, I believe. Yeah.
It was very frustrating, I have to say. And the second game that counted, I couldn't even find an AR. You know, I had an Uzi and a shotgun the whole game. It was pretty rough. With the restart games, I felt I had a lot better loot, we had better position at first. So yeah, it was pretty frustrating, unfortunately.
Okay, right. So obviously, talking about the blue changes, we saw it in the tournament. Liquid, obviously Ollywood, your teammate Scoomy sat outside the blue for a very long period of time, sort of self-healing himself.
Yep.
Yeah, let's just talk a little bit about it, because personally, as a spectator, if I didn't know anything about PUBG, I kind of find that almost not. I don't want to use the word lame as a tactic, because obviously you guys figured it out.
It is very lame.
Yeah, but it is
very lame.
It's not lame, right?
It's not fun to practice. It's not fun to do. I mean, if we had it our way, we would just play as a 4-man squad and just shoot people left and right. But in a placement environment, you know, it makes sense, right? You can guarantee a top 5 spot every game. So.
Well, yeah, especially when you're playing for money, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But how, in the end, you guys walked away with third game 30,000, right?
10K. That's the thing as well. Like going into this, we've been testing it so much, and most of the time, you would end up getting first, second, or third doing this.
Okay.
But the thing is, LG and that Russian team, I forget the name of their team, but they were doing so well the first 2 games. I believe LG won the first game and came second in the second game, and the Russian team got second in the first game and won the second game. So those 2 teams were so far ahead from the very first 2 games that we couldn't really catch up. And then obviously Daz and Noble beat us by 30 points in the end because they managed to win the last game.
You're smiling.
Yeah.
I mean, you touched on Luminosity. I saw them. They finished first in the first game because they came out of the big warehouse.
Yeah.
They actually the end fight was between you two as a squad, because you guys were on the kind of grassy mound just outside of it, firing down on them. And then
we had a really bad rotation. Yeah.
Yeah, because at the end of it, I was listening to the stream, and you guys, we should have moved earlier into the circle, and I was thinking, yeah, probably, but you know.
I mean, I didn't even know about the healing tactic at all. Like, I've never seen it in a game at all. I thought by that point the circle's strong enough it would have killed someone out in the blue.
Yeah, because usually you're running to the circle, right? So it's harder to run and heal or drive and heal. Like, if you're not moving and standing still and spamming heals, you can live for quite a while.
I didn't know you could live that long, personally.
I mean, the other thing to point out is it's not that the person's done his looting phase and then it's just he's looting with those meds. He's spending his entire time in that blue, running from compound to compound, searching exclusively for meds just to continue that strat.
Didn't a solo guy pretty much win Gamescom just by doing that?
Evermore.
It was Evermore. He was in the gas. I think he went to the spawn island at first.
He did, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that was crazy when I watched the bat. I was like, what's he doing?
I think he went twice.
He never actually got dinner though, did he? But points-wise, he won.
Atlanta strap.
Sitting in blue.
Yeah.
That was very smart of him, I feel.
It's a survival game, right?
Well, the last game to win, he just jumped in between the cavern, between the 2 rocks, and healed to 8th. And quite a few of the streamers were tweeting, and they were going not so much fuck this guy, but pretty much how could he's won the tournament and killed 4 people or something. He's just played completely just to hide and survive. So
I think it wasn't intentional. He got stuck. Unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah, he got stuck, and the casters were just laughing at him because he got stuck.
Yeah, I was about to ask that question if it was the case. Because I certainly saw him wedged in between a crate. Yeah. I didn't know if he'd wedged himself in there to remain in cover, or if he'd just definitely got himself stuck.
I never knew about that position to get stuck as well. So yeah, it was just unfortunate for him.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Fair play to him though. He came in with a plan and it worked out for him.
Oh yeah.
I suppose...
Okay.
Sorry. I was going to say, if you think about the bigger picture of this, though, you could kind of say that this is down to points for placements, isn't it? Because the reason why that is working is because a lot of the onus on where these points are coming from is from your overall placement in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that there should be? Do you think there's anything else they could do with that? Do you think you could reward maybe more points early in the game, so people want to fight early, or do you think that the pacing of the game is fine as it is?
No, I mean, I feel the point system wasn't as up to scratch as other tournaments that I've played in online. The developers even know that the score system wasn't really beneficial. Kills weren't really, you know, valuable enough, I feel,
Mm.
No.
which they should be, because it gives you the incentive to go out and kill people. Yeah, so basically, if you win, it's like 500 points, so you're guaranteed more likely in the money. Which, you know, kills didn't really take any factor in it whatsoever, unfortunately. So yeah, I feel kills should have been more rewarded, and points bumped down more.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's a tough one, isn't it? Really, the way, like we were discussing this the other day, because obviously I primarily just play ladder, right? I don't play in the tournament, so I haven't got time. I wish I did, but even Dan was saying, like, towards when you get towards, what was it, Dan, like top 100, and that the way the points are distributed is so like weird.
Yeah, it's different. I mean, like, I think it's hard to grind ladder out when you get to top 100 point unless you're getting lots of kills. I don't know if they've changed it this season, but last season, from looking at the points in games, it looked like you would get not very many points for a win or second or third, but if you had a high kill game and you killed people that were of a high elo in that game, you would appear to get more points. So it kind of felt last season like it was orientated a little bit more to around fragging high elo players. But again, this is just me being, looking at the points that I got in games and trying to work out, okay, how am I getting these points? What's working?
So
I feel it's more due to average damage in the game as well.
Yeah, damage for
sure.
sure.
If you do more average damage in the game, you get rewarded more points. Obviously, yeah, it does cater for if you kill a higher ELA player, you get more points. So if you die early, you suffer a huge chunk of loss of points.
Yeah, you do.
Whereas if you win, you only get like, say, 2, 4.
Yeah,
You know, it's a big risk factor basically. So you've got to stay on top. You've got to win your games basically.
So say next tournament comes along, what would you personally like change about the
Daz
point
highlighted
system?
this a minute ago, didn't he? Because Daz was saying that there's a couple of tournaments that they've played in online, and the rule set for the points seems to be different. Was that what you were saying?
Yeah, I mean, the tournament we play at Ozum online on Sundays, they have a really good score system. So I think it's 1 point kill, and then first is like 30 points, something like that. But it gives you the incentive to go out and kill people, basically.
Yeah, makes it worthwhile for sure.
Like the Ozum tournament, my guys, we won a couple of weeks back or so. It was very close between us and Kingwin. We killed the amount of same people in the game. I think it was 31 kills each. We won twice in a row, whereas they come second twice, and then they come like the third game was like 5th or 4th or something, where our third game was pretty, bad. It was like 8th or 9th, and we won by 1 point basically. So it was that intense. Everyone was rooting in the chat because our fate was took out of our hands when we died in the third game. It was one of the other teams that actually saved us to win the tournament.
So that was decided by a couple of kills.
Yeah, by a couple of kills.
That's good.
Like, I mean, I'm just thinking about like how when I was watching the tournament back, like just touching on the point system. Like, again, we mentioned Luminosity. They won the first game second, and then they came like 12th in the last one. They got completely owned.
Demolished, yeah.
And then but they still win the tournament, right? Because of the way the points were distributed. Definitely think, from what you're saying, the Awesome tournaments, how they set it up, sounds a lot better. It makes it, and almost in a way, it makes it more kind of esports friendly because people have the incentive to go get fights.
It makes it way more fun to watch as well, right? Like,
Exactly.
Yeah, like you actually you kind of actually do post sit on the fence.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I'd like to watch that. Like seeing people move, getting.
What is going on?
Yeah,
Was
going
it-
in and out.
Sorry, man. Is that better?
Yeah, yeah.
That's a lot better. Yeah.
That's loud.
Yeah,
as
sorry
shit.
about that. Yeah, man. No, I was just saying it. You know, as a spectator again for myself. I mean, I play the game and stuff, but I like play quite fast paced because I come from a CS background as well. So to have a tournament system that actually rewards you for being more aggressive or like, you know, not necessarily taking risks, but going more on the attack, I think it's much better as a spectator for a
Yeah.
spectator sport than it is like you say for people who are getting rewarded for sitting back.
Well, this is the other thing.
It is a survival game.
This is
It
what.
is, but there has to be a balance.
But that's the thing, though. Like when I was speaking to the devs after the tournament, they didn't really want to see it in it just as a survival game in general. They want more action packed for the spectators. So that's why they're looking to change the score system for the next events, which is pretty cool. I'm excited.
I definitely think that's the best direction to take it.
You
Yeah,
guys.
I mean-
sorry, carry on, Ollywood.
Yeah, so I think there needs to be a balance between just going all out hunting people and getting kills, and I also think it needs to be viable to play that survival sort of strategy where you avoid fights and just live towards the end by being sneaky basically. So I think that's the balance that Bluehole is trying to find, and all the tournament organizers are trying to find. And right now it's all been basically catered towards surviving. There's been no incentive to kill people basically.
Do you feel that 100 players per game is the way forward for esports, or would you cut that down?
I'd cut that down.
Yeah,
I don't feel 100's the way forward now.
Okay, so say 60 on the map.
You only do 64, something like that. I think it is. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely feel it's a lot better with a less player count than 100s. 100s to there's not enough loot basically. That we felt that the loot table was extremely low, even though it was set to ×1 as normal. But because there was so many more players than what leagues we normally play online to, I felt it was a bit more difficult in that way. So yeah, I think it'll be beneficial definitely to cut the player count down in official esports.
So obviously we spoke about reducing the amount of players in terms to make it esports ready, because obviously ESL, they're a massive corporation, right, trying to put on these events. If you were a smaller one, there's no incentive for companies to do it. The amount of manpower required, right? But in the actual game, we said about reduction of players, but what about, how do you guys feel about the map we have right now? And I know they mentioned about an urban map possibly coming in, the vaulting systems coming in. Yeah, just what do you feel if we had an esports map, so to say?
Yeah. So the map we have right now, I think has a lot of issues in terms of being a competitive game. So the main issue that I see with it is that there's basically no cover anywhere on the map apart from buildings. You have a few trees, a few rocks every here and there, but there's not really any way of moving, I guess, tactically across the map on foot. So what happens is everyone gets into a vehicle and they just rush a building, and they get in the building and they sit there until they're forced to move. And that's like it seems to be the only viable way to play right now, at least in third person, because the buildings are so strong, right? So what I would like to see is more cover on the map, more both soft and hard cover, more rocks, more bushes.
Not enough
more...
defilades.
Exactly.
You gotta love that, Dan. Sorry, I had to slot that in there.
No, yeah, for sure. Just a way of being able to move across the map.
I mean, the only place I can think of with the proper outside cover would be outside Malta Power. The log place. What's it? Lumber mill, a lumber with all the chopped, with all the chopped trees. Like, that's the only place I can actually, think of on the map that would provide that sort of outside soft cover.
Yeah, so I agree with Ollie on that. There's not enough positions cover on the map, so you see a lot of teams grabbing vehicles, driving to buildings, and just holding down a building on third person. Our team, we've sort of invented the strategic aspect around that. We build, as people say, towers with our cars. We invented that with a lot of cover the cars, so we build like different kind of shapes with the cars. Because there's not much cover on the map.
Formation.
I feel like Ollie said, there had to be more rocks. There's got to be more ridges. There's got to be more hard cover, soft cover, definitely. And at this moment with the map, it is. I don't feel it's esports, friendly. I just say and competitive level. That's why in third person everyone holds down a building because it's strong. It's easy to hold down a position than trying to make cover.
Which is why I think, like you mentioned, third person, having like an urban, that would be, to be honest, a fucking nightmare.
Exactly.
That mode.
Well, that's what I thought. When I saw this doing for the desert, like city part, they had like 5-story buildings, like massive blocks, and I'm thinking, like, that's a nightmare. Like third person, to have people the whole time, nobody moves.
I mean, there is something that can be fixed about that. With third person, they could maybe change the way the camera reacts. Like instead of the more you go closer to a wall, maybe the camera zooms in more, so you can't look around walls third person wise. There's things that they can change to improve that. But yeah, I definitely feel a desert map, but third person, it's gonna be pretty hectic because there's not gonna be much cover apart from the city buildings. Everyone's just gonna camp in buildings. It's just gonna be.
It's gonna be like Yasnaya, basically. Yasnaya final circle, Yeah.
If it's really hard to build a map which caters to both first and third, do you think that you might see the desert map being more kind of orientated around first, and then them kind of leaving the map that we have now for third?
Yeah, I feel the desert map will be more used as first person for definite.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. I hope they go in with the mindset of either creating a really good third person map or a really good first person map and stick to that instead of trying to make it work.
Trying to cater for two, yeah.
Well,
I'm excited to see how you're going to be with this new desert map. Obviously, with the city buildings and such, I'm excited. What strats or strategic plays you're going to do with entering buildings, because at the moment now, without the vaulting, or there's only one entrance, basically the doors, and it's impossible to breach a building when someone's holding a building down like that. So I'm excited to see the change in that, what they're going to do with how you can jump through windows.
Well, most people can jump through windows now, can't they? Which further entrenches them into a building, because you know that they're going to have trouble getting into your building. But at any time, if they get through your first guy at the door and you feel threatened, you can immediately put a guy out of a window behind them, and you can start pushing in from the rear. So it really does, furthermore, make buildings ridiculously strong at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, like with the new mechanics that are coming, you can actually like climb up on buildings and such. That's going to be pretty awesome.
I mean, yeah, everyone's binding the. Actually, that's a point. Was that allowed at Gamescom? The binding crouch jump through?
No.
Yeah, not the one that's in the game where you can bind crouch and jump as the same key.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have to do it as a skill basically. So you've got to crouch and jump as you'd normally do. As the trick is basically. So.
Suppose it brings back like almost CS when you used to have the bunny hop of people.
Yeah, you're not allowed.
Yeah, basically you couldn't script. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No scripts were allowed now.
I just find it weird that it's in the game, and then it's like, no, you can't use
it. They should just patch it out.
They will patch it out.
Yeah, they'll patch
it. They will. So yeah,
it'll be a very quick patch for them. I'm very sure.
I can't remember the game it was, but I saw. Well, it's a different game, but it's based on a similar model. But it was they'd done a fix for third person, and what it was is I can't remember the name of the game now. I was gonna write it down for talk, but what they've done is, whilst you might be able to look over the wall in third person games, you can't avoid that kind of aspect of things from being able to see. But if you're crouched down behind the wall, it wouldn't allow you to see who was there, from a peripheral, unless you were actually stood up. So they would actually become invisible. Like, seeing another game like that do that, do you think that the developers from PUBG might try and look into doing that side of things to force people from being able to actually just sit on high ground and watch everybody moving around them, or do you think that keep the third person model as it is.
I kind of hope that they keep third person the way it is right now, because people enjoy it, right, for the casual aspect of the game. There's a lot of top players out there which also enjoy the way that third person is right now, and I don't think you should take that away, because yeah, go on.
It's an entire skill set.
Exactly, yeah.
Gaining and maintaining a third person advantage is an entire skill set, and to go with it, there is a skill set that goes against it, which is how to fight against a person in third. So that's it. Like, what you're basically saying to a load of people who maybe aren't kind of CS pros, they've come into this game, they've embraced the survival element of it, and they've got to grips with third person camera angles, and they've learned, and they've built a whole kind of a base of a style of a play in their head that they're really successful with. And if you take that away from them, they're going to be disappointed. And you do have to kind of acknowledge there is a skill set. There's a defined skill set to using the third-person camera system.
Definitely. It's just something I saw, and I thought it was quite intriguing the way that they was kind of doing that. Maybe they're doing it to differ themselves from other third-person games. But it was just something I saw. I thought it was quite interesting the way that.
No, it is interesting, certainly.
The thing for me though here is like your player unknown. You've sold 8 million games worldwide with PUBG. You then you're rocking the Steam charts, and you've just had a very successful first esports event. All problems aside, I would call it a success, right? But now you've got the decision. Brings me quite nicely onto it. First person or third person. Now, in my mind, if you choose between either of them, you're going to annoy someone, right? So what do? Do they just keep hosting first-person events and third-person events to cater to everyone? Or are we going to see that divide and go, okay, no, professional esports is going to be third-person, or it is going to be first-person? Because I don't know which way you go with that. Personally, watching the games at Gamescom, I thought that first-person provided quite a very action-packed kind of intensity, because you couldn't see, like, there was one bit where Ninja was crawling through the grass and
the ring.
Yeah, you can't see me, right, because of third person, but there was also elements of tactical camera work with third person that it provides. So I mean, what do you guys feel is pros, and obviously on the panel?
I mean, I think there's two, both modes have problems. I feel third person at the moment, the meta with the cars, even when loads of cars are driving as well, it kills the server. The server's extremely laggy. So I feel something needs to change with that to make third person work. Whereas first person, I still feel personally, before I judge either one, I do like both modes. But first person, I feel they should make you more visibility in the grass, because you can't really find anyone.
I agree.
At the moment now, it's very hard to find people in first person, which slows the pace of the game down. And it's really boring as a spectator side of things to watch. But when the action...
Lost you, mate.
Oh, we lost you for a second there, Daz.
I don't know why he keeps doing this.
There you go.
That's fine.
Carry on.
Yeah, so basically, when it's just a brawl-out battle, when you spectate it, it's obviously fun and with the action and such. But like I say, when you can't find any people thrown in grass, it just gets extremely boring to watch, unfortunately.
Yeah, the grass is a bit too crazy right now, and I think also an adding factor to that is you don't really have any cover on the map, right? So you have this huge field of grass, you just go prone and you're perfectly fine in the grass, because no one will be able to see you, right?
Yeah,
Whereas
I could literally just prone in the grass, and not get seen for ages.
Exactly. So if you had more rocks, more hard cover, a little bit more like soft cover, like bushes and stuff instead, that would incentivize people to actually move from cover to cover instead of just staying prone in a field, right?
Yeah, I mean, are you guys on the fence still with which way you want to see the tournaments go? Or are you happy just to play in both types?
As a professional, you adapt. I'm happy.
Oh, you might. Oh, yeah, I'm close.
Yep, is it gone? Is it gone again?
Yeah,
It's
it's
back.
good. Come
You're
back.
back. You're back.
I don't know why he's doing it. Yeah,
That's
so
good.
I mean, as a professional, I feel I'm happy whichever mode comes on the competitive level. You just have to adapt to it, basically.
The things that really get me with first person cars, like driving, is a nightmare. Like if you're Like you can't see.
It's
You
nightmare
can't see the
driving with you,
boats.
Anton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
George has been bad recently, man. He's ditched nearly every car I've been in with him. Like,
Worst
like,
driver
because you can't-
EU.
No, man, I'm not. I taught George how to drive though. So
Hey,
maybe that's
look,
why
that
he
annoyed
got
me
back.
yesterday
But listen,
when I went for that crate in the water and the fucking map was just like, no, you can't turn your boat anymore. Like, what?
yeah, that was mad.
As a knack to getting it off.
But I feel that maybe they should allow third-person driving in first person, or at least change the perspective.
They get
I feel-
exploited.
Yeah,
But
that's
you
the
can
that's
look behind you anyway when you're in the car. Like,
nah, but
Some
like
guy's going to park a car behind a wall, sit in the car in third person over it.
Yeah, that's true.
true.
But going back to the third person versus first person thing, we're
Yeah.
sort of in the testing phase of things
Yeah.
right now. We need to test it. Like tournaments, online tournaments at least, are just now starting to try out first person. We had our first PUBG Online showdown league qualifying thing yesterday, which was first person, and that felt really good. So we just have to wait and see. We have to keep trying both modes and see what happens, I guess.
That's what I want to hear. I think that's the best thing. Like moving on from what Ollie was saying there,
Go back,
is
yeah.
that the way that I think about it at the moment is that, like, do you remember the Call of Duty days and you had pro mod? And if you think about CS, we all played CS. The pros, we all established the rule set for that. We decided how many rounds we wanted to play. We decided on the start money. Effectively, we if you went from tournaments, you would go and you would load the ESL config rules. So I think that what I want to see from PUBG is I want to see all the pros hammer third. I want to see the pros hammer first. And I want to see from the pros and the community together, coming together and deciding between themselves on the best rule set to go out with.
Yep.
I think it'll come from everyone playing it, trying different things, and then just, I think eventually something will come out and they'll say, right, this is it. We're going to play 64-man servers. This is going to be the loot table. This is what we're going to go with. I think we're going to end up with something like the ESL config for CS.
thing is,
For sure.
I think there's room for both. Like the last thing I want to see is them announce that one way is the way, and then it completely
Yeah.
divides up everything.
No, I
Or
want to see it
people
from the community. If the community decide, look, we decided we want to go with this, then yeah, I want them to support that decision. I want the community to do what it wants, and I want Player Unknown's Battlegrounds to come in at the end and go, okay, community, that's a decision you wanted, and this is what we're going to support.
Is there Ollie? Is there like a player council right now for
Yeah,
PUBG?
yeah, there is. After Gamescom, a bunch of us just started talking, and we're communicating right now with the esports responsible people at Bluehole as well. So we're trying to come up with the best way of playing the game at a top level esports.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's good to hear. And anyone else who wants to get into esports, that's good. That's motivation for them.
So obviously we spoke about the blue. We spoke about first person, third person. There's a couple of things like Darren mentioned earlier about the loot tables. Now, just my thoughts on this before we get into it is, would you guys think that having set loot in set buildings might make it good for esports, like create these choke points, good for the casters and things, or do you think that would be, that like not good for the
The
scene?
race for grace.
Yeah,
I
People
think that-
legging it towards.
Hunger Games.
I think that would eliminate the random effect.
Exactly. Yeah.
I feel if certain areas that have that loot, people are going to go challenging for it, and it's going to be exciting to watch if two teams land in that area.
Donkey punch central.
Frying pans.
Yeah, I definitely feel they need to steer away from the random effect of where the loot spawns. It's just random basically, because you can one game you can get really good loot, the next game you can get really bad loot, and it determines the factor in the game basically, your position, if you're going to win the game or not basically.
I tell you what's not good is the stupid fucking building with the attic. There's never anything in that fucking attic.
Oh yeah, dude. No, just ignore the house, dude.
Like I go in there, I'm like, yeah, surely, and nope. Every time there's a fucking TV, some papers on the floor, and it's like and a stupid hole to look out of that you can see like 1 pixel. It's like, yeah, cheers.
Yeah.
Do you not think that loot thing's a bit of a defining thing for a good player though? Because like you would think that a decent player, a guy that's got lots of experience in the game, even if they drop into the game in a bad situation and they've got bad loot, they'll find a way out of it. Like that has to be part of the game, doesn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. So
Because
it's a good thing to make the game more consistent in terms of loot, like in terms of being a good esports game, a fun game to play at a top level. Consistency is a good thing, but at the same time, the core game, which we all fell in love with, had that random factor to it.
Exactly.
So you need to keep a bit of the RNG in, obviously, to keep it fresh and to keep it enjoyable.
I'd still let a few set spawns for like the AWP or something. I don't know.
That could be interesting, yeah.
It's like
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how it worked.
I had a period of time where I was like, no, no crates for me, and then I went for a few crates and I got like a Tommy gun and an MT49, and it's like, how often do I find like the AWP anymore? Like, I don't think I found one in like maybe 30 games, Dan. Every time we gone for these crates.
And then you just die.
Yeah,
You
well, yeah.
pick it up, you don't get to fire a
It's
shot.
like a beacon, isn't it, on the map with the fucking smoke going off? And yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
And I always have the question, like, should we go for that? Yeah, it looks pretty safe, no one around. As soon as you rock up to it, like fucking, it's like Saving Private Ryan trying to crawl down the beach, like.
So on the question of like the loot, I've got a question for you guys about Gamescom. So how many people on average were in a Gamescom game? Was it 100? Was it less?
We were 80, I think 81.
80.
Okay, about 80 people. Okay,
Yeah.
and you said that you guys are using the same loot table as everyone else. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
default
Standard
table.
loot table. Okay, so so the way that I look at it is this. So there was not a lot of action at the start. Would you agree? Yeah. So you've got loads of people that are still alive. So in a normal game with that loot table, that loot gets condensed down. So the 80 people, the 100 people, they all get weapons. But then halfway through the game, you've got 40, 50 people left, and a lot of people have been looted. So yeah, I mean, like, people are having trouble in Gamescom getting decent gear, but I think a lot of that was because there wasn't any action early. There wasn't that distribution of loot down from people getting looted.
Yeah, for sure, that's a factor. And I think also another part of it is that people are scared. Again, people don't want to take the fights. So people avoid looting as long as they would in pub games, because you sacrifice positioning if you keep looting. So that's another big part of it, I think.
Do you was there any teams at Gamescom that you thought kind of took advantage of people playing? I don't want to say scared, but playing passive. Did you see people that were using that to their advantage, knowing that people, when they were engaged upon, were most likely going to try and back off?
Yeah, for sure. I think we saw C9. They were playing pretty aggressively throughout the tournament, in both duos and squads, and especially in duos, they had a really good time. I think they were really comfortable, playing aggressive, playing their normal sort of style of playing.
Yeah.
You say about like not taking fights. I suppose there is one sort of egg in the room. No, not egg.
Elephant.
Elephant. That's an egg.
Yeah, there's an egg in the room.
Old age, boys. Elephant in the room. The water.
Don't talk to me about old age, dude.
Oh yeah.
So here's my thoughts on the water. Right, I'm all for it, but I think personally, what they should add is a hypothermia effect. If you're in the water for a certain amount of time, start getting hypothermia. That would completely eliminate that whole get out behind the boat and just fucking ass.
That's a really good idea, actually. I like that.
Yeah, I like that.
Is that
Take
the
it to
first
the
time you
Player
mentioned
Council.
that quiet? I've spoken to you about.
I'm
about
full of
things
ideas,
like
mate.
Get that one. Get that
Take
one
that to the
into-
Player Council, lads.
Right,
Take it to the Player
yeah.
Council.
Right, that's a good one, because it's actually annoying as hell, because you can't shoot a mofo in water,
So
That
you're
is-
basically
it's
on
a
2
season-
timers then,
and
right?
they're just sitting
Season
there
one
behind the
strat.
boat.
Well,
Yeah,
season one
that's
strat, isn't it? Everyone's
dark.
been doing this in season 1, and you're right, it is on 2 times because you'd be fighting the blue, and then you'd
Yeah.
also be fighting against hypothermia. That's a
And you're
great
also
idea.
fighting
actually.
against
Yeah,
the
they'll force
players on the
people out of the
beach
water.
trying to shoot you as well, because
Yeah.
you have I guess the 3rd timer then as well would be, because you need to dive down to avoid the shots from the beach and the land, right? So that's actually
saw
a really
it.
good idea.
I saw a
Well,
picture
I
on
think
Reddit. I
that's
think of
awesome.
like I think it was like 7 different teams all in the water at Gamescom. There was like a Reddit picture that was put
Yeah.
out.
Has
Yeah.
anybody else mentioned that?
It needs to be
that
fixed.
first time. Is that first time on a vault?
I
that
don't
this is
know.
being brought
I was
out?
just
Is that-
thinking about
that's
it.
a good
'cause
idea, dude.
it's
Like, serious.
like Dan said, you saw it at Gamescom, just people just getting out behind the boats. It's just like I get there's certain tactics and elements of the game, but ultimately, like for this game that we all love to be successful, it needs to be fun to watch, fun to play, and competitive.
Yeah. I must
Yeah,
admit,
that-
though,
that's a
seeing
nice
all that stuff
element.
at Gamescom, I loved it. I really did. Because, like, in a way, it's like it was like a combination of all the different weird tactics that you've kind of seen, like seeing people going to the spawning island, seeing people sitting behind the boats in the water, seeing people, like loads of people just hiding in the water. So you kind of got like a real good idea of all the kind of quirky strats that everyone likes to put out.
Yeah, yeah, that was lame.
It also highlighted that
Like-
loads of stuff needs to be fixed.
I mean, what do you think, Ollie? Does Anything to add about the Titanic?
Yeah. So we were actually talking within the team yesterday about the water, like what can be done about it, and they recently, I think it was Amir, which is part of the esports program at Bluehole.
Yeah.
He made a post to Reddit saying they will add bullet penetration to water. And I don't know if I'm a fan of that. I don't think that is the right approach, because I still think you need to be able to dip down into the water.
But the thing is, if you shoot bullets into water in real life, they slow down by about 80%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should just have it
So
doing that, have
this
it reduce damage.
hypothermia thing is really cool, actually.
I think you should have both. I definitely think that people shouldn't just get this layer of invulnerability when they dip under the water. I think maybe bullets should take they should do reduced damage.
Very
But but you've also got to appreciate that depending on where the person is that firing, they have very limited vision when that person goes under the water.
But
I mean, I feel they also need to improve the hitbox as well. With when you're on the top of the water,
Yeah, for sure.
you can't shoot on someone's head easily.
No, you're right. You can't.
The hitbox is all messed up, and the devs even confirmed that as well, which they're looking to change. We even gave the Tuna, one of the the main programmers, an idea where to make the crossbow useful, maybe have a crossbow as a different slot instead of like a second weapon, and you could pick up a crossbow and use a crossbow for people in the water, basically, and you could snipe
That's
out
a
the
good,
water.
Fucking
that's
harpoon
a
them.
good point.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah, you got a freaking harpoon.
It makes the crossbow useful, basically.
Yeah, because there's high risk as well with crossbow, right? Because of the reload times and everything else you miss. It's just like
I think
nobody really wants to use it.
Talking about useful things, like, is there a use for a pistol, a silenced pistol, other than shooting out windows and putting on a red dot and carrying a red dot around for someone?
GoldenEye.
Pistols feel like they don't really have that much use at the moment after the start of the game.
I mean, the one pistol that they need to improve is definitely the revolver. It's pointless. It's useless. The reload time on that is ridiculous.
You should be able to put a red dot on it anyway, for sure. You can put a scope on a World War II sniper rifle.
I mean,
you can put a red dot on a revolver.
The reload time on that used to be really good back in alpha. It used to be instant, but now it takes forever to reload. It's pointless. It's just the useless gun.
I mean, I gotta agree. I always sometimes you start the game. It's like, I got a revolver, boys. Just give me 5 minutes and I'll have it loaded.
You're trying to I mean, at least you can reload in between opening doors now. You know what I mean? Like before, when you had the revolver, you have to reload like 7 rounds, or is it 6 rounds or whatever? You can't do anything. You literally just got to stand in the room, not open the door, and then somebody just runs in and smacks you in the back of the head.
That's still a problem as well. Like when you reload a gun and then you open a door, you don't get your gun reloaded. You have to reload it.
Yeah, it cancels.
Yeah.
Which is the mini game. I like to go around and see how many doors I can open whilst trying to reload before I actually get the reloading.
Like, we're talking about useless things. Stun grenades. Anyone used a good one of them?
Yeah,
I've used quite a few of them.
Yeah, I got a squad wipe, 1v4 squad wipe with a stun grenade in the bottom floor, and I walked in and there was 2 guys sat staring at me, and they had no idea I was there. They had zero. I just sat there watching them.
They need to change the trajectory thing when you throw a HE and stuff, because sometimes it goes nowhere near where I'm aiming. It's like, what the fuck?
Another thing as well is it's good for masking footsteps, if anything else, because if you don't hit the flash but you hit the bang, then you get some masking of footsteps when you're trying to breach. I mean, like you guys were saying before, a big part of the game at the moment seems to be moving in fast and breaching buildings and taking control of a building. And yeah, like, I don't know. Other than saying that, whenever I've breached a building, I haven't ever been like, right, boys, you just stop here for a second. I'm just going to pull out a flashbang and flash you in. It doesn't really work like that.
No.
I guess to sum up.
See, I do. That's probably why I get killed a lot.
Yeah, probably.
I'm stood there and they're third person to me. I'm going, yeah, I've got a nade here. Yeah. They're like, yeah, look at him, sitting duck, and he's dead.
Did you see the thing in Gamescom where the guy's pinned a nade, instantly got downed, and he's crawling on the floor and just blows up? It's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, I did that the other day.
I hate that. No, I guess to sum up, like, I don't think, going back to the water thing, I don't think, if you have the hypothermia thing, it's a risk anyway, so maybe don't have the bullet penetration through the water, right? Because you're on a timer, like we said, against the blue and the water, so it's more of a calculated risk to go out for those crates as well. So I think...
But you got to also think as well, like, if you get circle fucked, and say you're across the islands and then it moves over to military islands, and there's no boats, you know, so everyone takes all boats and such like that. How are you going to get over the water if you got a, you know, a thermal
Swim.
thing?
Yeah, if you've got to swim.
Yeah, if you have to swim it, basically, how are you going to how are you going to do that, basically?
I mean, how you would add that. Maybe it would kick in when you're kind of treading water for more than I don't know, 5 seconds or something. Yeah, so it starts to build up.
Because people just can't can camp bridges easily. It's easy to camp a bridge.
Yeah, I think if you're moving,
it's a hard one. So if you're stationary, it happens faster. If you're moving, it happens slower. So it gives you some time to get across like a gap. And it never goes back down unless you get out of the water. Like clean out of the water and stay out of the water.
The instant problem.
Sorry,
no, I was going to say the instant problem I see with that is they would need to code it in that people just can't sit under the water like tapping left and right to simulate their moving.
I was going to say like moving forward on what you were saying is actually maybe they have like a circumference or an area of which recognizes you're sat at. So if you don't move from that particular area for like an amount of time, you're not actually, say for example, utilizing energy to keep warm by swimming. You know, you're just scullying around and moving for the sake of it, then you get that. But if you actually keep moving, you generate, like real life, in it, you generate heat with moving, burning energy. Maybe you get penalized for sitting with a certain area, like
I'm close to my
maybe a few blocks. Sorry, you want my mic forward?
You guys with mics, man. I'm gonna have
to... moving a bit forward. Listen, man, we're not. I'll have one of those in a few weeks. Don't worry. Right, but yeah, if you're in that circumference or like a certain targeted area, and you're just moving around just to mull around the back of your boat or whatever, then you get penalised. But if you're actually straight swimming, you're like moving, you don't get penalised for it. You know what I mean? I think maybe
just put sharks in the water.
I was saying that yesterday, but
but
I think
the equivalent of a bomb run, you got a shark run as well.
Yeah,
like the old one.
Are you just like punch each other in the water or something like that?
Yeah, no, but in the water. I think with the hypothermia, what you could do, what you said, that's like if you have to cross the water to get into the circle, you could just have the hypothermia be active when you're in the circle. So that way people, because it's only a problem when you're in the circle,
yeah,
right?
That's a great idea.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Well done.
All dropping knowledge bombs here, boys.
Yeah, that's dead right, because that's when the problem occurs.
Exactly, no, but wait, what happens with that then if the circle, like, say it has a huge portion of water and you're swimming over and you get into the white and then you start getting the hypothermia and you're like, shit, I've got to get to the island more. You know, it's miles away still and you're still like, fuck, this is a bad idea. I'm going to die here.
I think it's
just have it. Got to be planning involved, right?
It's not going to be perfect for everyone, but
no, because he's you're within the blue, right? So have that idea, but soon as the circle starts coming in, then maybe I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, like or just like when you're in the white part of the circle, like the locked-in circle, that's where you have the hypothermia.
I mean, the main thing about it is that it's to get rid of a silly tactical element that's being used at the moment.
Yeah.
That's just bring in rocket launchers and blow up boats.
Yeah, I'm in favour of sharks.
Yeah, but dude, you know what? That's a tactic, you know, because if these people are chilling, doing their thing in the water, thinking that they've still got a boat,
you get like a deployable shark.
No,
there's one aquarium based in like Georgia Pole, and you go.
Dude, listen, what I'm trying to say is if you then blow up, if you're on the island and you blow up their freaking boat because they're being sat there waiting because they're outside of the white. Or they're not getting burnt for being there. Then all of a sudden their boat's gone. They have to swim, and they're actually outside of the area. I think that could be a tactical element in itself. You know, you just remove their element of travel to be able to get out of the hypothermia situation.
I mean, all good point. To be honest, I just hope something's implemented. I think we can all agree that what we saw at Gamescom was kind of annoying.
Yeah, I mean, it's not fun to play either. It's not fun to be that guy that have to be in the water to secure a better spot. It's not fun. Yeah, exactly.
It's just not Gamescom that happens. It happens with PUBG Online. It happens at Awesome. No. Everyone uses the water as a tactic.
Yeah, we've done it. I've done it, and I'm a noob.
Our team's never done it. We don't really favour that.
So, I mean, we've obviously touched on pretty much. I've touched on everything I wanted to cover today. I mean, have you guys got anything in particular you wanted to mention? Looking at Daz. Beautiful eyes.
No. No, I just I feel like a lot of it's been discussed. Like again, like I say, I'm happy whichever way it goes. With the water, personally, I feel I like having being able to damage people in the water, but not as much.
Okay.
Because obviously, when you shoot in water in real life, the bullet just breaks basically. So, yeah, I feel that will limit people using water a lot. I still feel about this hypothermia system that you mentioned, how it's going to work. I mean, it's a good idea. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But again, like I say, if you get circle foot and you got to swim to get to the zone, then you're still screwed anyways. So, but I think Ollie touched on it there. If it's like set white zone, basically, the actual set white zone instead of the moving blue with it, then maybe that might work. So,
I mean,
yeah.
there's still a big discussion, right, with how circle situation as well, like maybe less randomized circles. I mean, people were mentioning, I think the devs mentioned that the one way of battling the whole blue situation we saw at Gamescom is to the further away you are from the circle, the more damage you're going to be taking.
That's what they're looking to do, yeah.
So, I mean, you gotta remember, we're treating it like it's a fully released game, right? Because we've had the first big esports event, but we're still in early access, and all I can say is props to the devs, because they update the community, they do constant updates, they're active on Reddit, they always reply to tweets. So this is why I want the game to do well, because you look at Valve, you know what I mean? You never hear anything from them. And
I think they're making their own success here. I think half the reasons why it's so popular is because everyone in the community knows how good these guys are being when compared to other games developers. So I think they're making their own success in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, even as a nobody, I feel like sometimes I have a voice, like I'm included in part of a community and part of the involvement and the progression of the game, which I've never really had from other games. But in this instance, I do feel that,
I mean, this is why the game is so big, because obviously the dev team, they listen to their community. Community speaks out to them, and they implement changes. We see, a monthly change, updates. We see weekly changes. It's nice to be involved in a game where the devs are so in tune with their community. You can actually communicate with them, and express your opinions or feelings about situations that need to change within the game to improve.
So, I guess to round this off for a start is, obviously Daz and Ollie, what would you like so first up, what's next for you guys moving forward as teams and players, and where do you see the game going? Where do you want it to go over the next half a year? Ollie?
Yeah.
I'm just stood here doing jazz hands, sorry, fucking.
I just feel incredibly lucky right now. Choosing to play a game that I really enjoy playing, and that my past experience plays a big part in as well. And the game is growing at a crazy pace. I'm just looking at the Steam charts right now, and I think we're about to hit 1 million players today.
That's insane.
The actual the arc of the flipping graph is ridiculous. It just goes
it's crazy
like that. Mad.
So I'm just excited for the future for the game. I think it's unstoppable at this point, both as a casual game and as an esport.
I'm extremely grateful to be a professional for this game. Since day one, I knew since day one this game would be massive.
Yep.
And I'm glad I made the switch from H1 to PUBG.
I think everyone is like H1. Just to touch on it, H1, let's update our game now, boys. The PUBG's stupid, but sorry, Karen.
I think, well, just to quickly add on that, I think one of the things for me about PUBG is that CSGO was its own thing. It kind of forged forward and went, right, this is how you do first-person shooters online. And then this was my experience. And then World of Warcraft came along. And it was a completely different thing. It was just this is how you do an MMO. And everyone was just like, rah, MMO, brilliant. Then League of Legends came along. And then before that, you already had Dota. I'm sure loads of us played the original Dota. The mod. And then you had HON. And HON was very successful. And then League of Legends came out and went, bang, this is how you do. It's MOBA, isn't it? This is how you do this genre of game. And it just took over. And I think you've had attempts from DayZ and from Armor mods, and then you had H1 coming out, but then all of a sudden PUBG's arrived, and I think this is going to be the game that defines this genre. It's going to be it's going to make its own new genre, and this is going to be. I think this is the new kind of League of Legends in that sense.
I really agree, Dan. I think this actually, personally for me, I've never really been involved or wanted to be involved in the survivalist genre of games. Like, I mean, I've seen H1Z1 and all the other ones, but there was something about this game that grabbed me. Like, that I just feel that this is the one. Like, it's actually already. If to me personally, since playing this, I've played the other ones and gone back and played all the other types, and this, by and large, supersedes what they're trying to achieve.
It feels more like a complete package.
But yeah, it feels more involved, and you actually, there's so many different things that you have to be aware of and be skillful with. You know, from bullet travel to drops to attachment to all these different factors that can benefit you or be negative. You know, like even strategies of where people, I fall foul of it all the time, and you always bollock me. George bollocks me when I get hype. I see somebody, I just start opening up on them when you lot have got silencers. You know what I mean? And like things like that. But that's a strategy. You know, like I am. I'm just like, yeah, I've seen one. That's north. And I'm just like throwing everything and I shoot it. He's like, yeah, nice one. You're giving up our position, bro. Like, but the fact that is a factor. The other games didn't really have that, and so that, by and large, I think like you say, it makes it a complete game.
I mean, so obviously for you guys, what if you, is there a, I know you probably can't mention it if it's been told to you, but is another LAN on the card soonish? Is that something that we might see within the next half a year? I certainly hope so.
Yes, I can't really talk about it, but it's going to be this year still.
Yeah, it's very soon. It's a lot sooner than you might think.
Yeah. But
non-disclosure agreements.
Like for me, that's awesome.
NDA.
I mean, I haven't been told that it's NDA or that I'm under NDA, but
no, exactly,
obviously we still don't want to talk about it.
No,
they haven't announced it yet, so.
For sure, but I'm hyped for it. Like for me personally, like I'm fucking old, but I ain't got time to play professionally anymore. But I would love more than anything to be involved in casting PUBG and the development of it as well, because it's, when I watched Gamescom, despite all the problems and some of the tactics we saw coming out, it made me feel like I was 12 again, 10 years old, you know, that sort of age, watching Fatality play Quake, or when I first touched CS, you know. For me, CS, I've been involved so long, like almost 17 years. It's like there's nothing fresh for me. It doesn't get me excited like it used to, you know.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like with Gamescom, I met my personal goals. My personal goal was there to be the top killer, and I ended up being the top killer in the squads.
Yeah.
So it was pretty awesome. Yeah, it wasn't shown on stream, unfortunately. A lot of people were asking who's the MVP, who's the top killer. But you know, I think overall the tournament was brilliant. It had a very successful tournament. But yeah, I'm excited for the next tournament personally. I want to see the scoreboard changes definitely impact for kills a lot more.
I would like to see ESL doing on. Well, I think that would be.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
And so far, I guess no roster changes for either of your teams. Considering you guys did pretty swish.
Oh, he's digging. Look at his face.
Just gonna throw that one in there. Just
it's difficult with us because we've got Edak that works so many hours, and he earns a lot of money for it. He's a hard worker, so we have to like sub in to Divine. We have been discussing about getting a permanent fourth. It's something that's on the card still. We're still discussing, see what happens. But yeah, I'm happy with how our team's performed.
Yeah.
I still feel we had two pretty bad games. Our first squad game, we switched our tactics up from the first game. In the second game, we made a bad push on the second game, which got us killed, unfortunately. But the third game we did it in
blame
style.
Someone or
No, we did the third game we did it in style. I feel one of the most hectic games in the history of the game itself, for that amount of people alive in the fifth circle, and then we had to fight our way up a hill to get into position at the opposite end, and coming out on top was an amazing feeling.
I saw that circle was. I remember watching it. I was like, well, don't know who was it. One of the Asian players like drove in with a motorcycle to a rock or something, right? Like for 1,000 miles an hour, and all the cast was like, yeah, like what's going on here?
Yeah, we knew we had to win the last game. We knew it. To get anywhere in the prize money, we had to win the last game and get at least 10 kills to catch up.
Yeah. Like we were looking at you guys in the top 10. We didn't even consider you as a threat coming into the last game because you were so far behind.
No, we didn't feel that we were gonna. Even if we did win, we still wouldn't have been in the prize money.
No,
the kills had to come, and that's when I just destroyed. That's when I put my A game at the end.
You turned into freaking Johnny Rambo.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so Ollywood, what about you? Keeping the same roster, practicing hard for the next lands?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, we're still quite new as a roster. We were playing together for quite a while before getting announced. But yeah, it's too early on to say. I think we're quite happy where we are right now. We just need to practice a lot more. There's so many things that you need to practice in this game, especially as a squad. There's so many elements to master, I guess, in this game that you just have to practice hard, I guess. Yeah.
For me, I'm just gonna sort of to wrap this up. I'm just gonna give it to the panel, you guys. If there's anything anyone else wants to ask, then Dan, have you got any more thoughts about what we spoke about today?
Oh, I'm sorry, because we're on about loads of stuff. You've given the opportunity, but I will not take.
Yeah, man.
Hey, man, remember
the show going.
Every week we need content, Dan. So don't blow your load too early.
I will say it's been great getting some insight from you guys, and it's been cool just being able to like field some questions and get your kind of ideas on how things are going. And I'm sure there's going to be loads of people that listen to this, and they're all going to have plenty of questions or ideas on things like the hypothermia. And it'll be interesting to see if other people in the community decide to chime in and give us some more input on kind of the things that we could be talking to you guys about or other professionals moving forward.
Then if hypothermia comes in, I'm taking full.
All right, you got it.
I mean, for me, as an individual, I don't play at a high level. I chill with George on stream. It's actually George that got me to get this game. I bought it before him, but and then he moved out to Germany and didn't really get a chance to play with him too much. But for me, it's quite interesting coming on and speaking to pros, and obviously I speak to Dan plays loads. And still having a similar mindset or looking at things from an open-minded perspective, which I think is key to this kind of community from a PUBG perspective. It seems that everybody's quite open-minded and willing to try different things. So that's what I've taken from this today. Is I think if the rest of the community is like that, I think we can go a long way. And it's exciting times for the esports in general for PUBG.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, boys, like I say, our very first podcast, my very first podcast ever hosting. So I just want to say thank you for giving me. Shh. No, I just want to say thank you for giving me. Hope to have you back and pros to come on. And like I say, great to get to know you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invite.
Yeah, thank you. It was fun.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for your time, boys. It's been good.
So obviously we just wrapped up our PUBG section with Liquid Ollywood and Daz FPS, third and fourth respectively at Gamescom. Massive props for those guys coming on the first ever podcast for us. What can I say? Just nothing but love for those guys. I think they gave us some really great insight into what we expect from PUBG. And next week, like I said, we're going to be bringing on more guests. So yeah, let's see how it goes. But I thought that was fantastic from those guys. And now we move on to something a little bit different. We're just going to touch just a tiny bit on some Counter-Strike news. Obviously, Dreamhack Malmo is going on right now. You'll see me cover this in my work with Unicorn quite often. Either I'm casting CS or co-hosting a show with my partner James Banks. Yeah, I just want to touch a little bit on what's going on. First off, we got the grand final, G2 versus North. This is where we're going to bring in Shawn as well, by the way. We introduced him earlier. He was a bit silent in the PUBG section, but he's got a lot to say on Counter-Strike Global Offensive. So, obviously, first thing we can touch on is G2 North in the final. I don't think anyone, in my prediction, I wouldn't have predicted this. And I'll tell you my reasons why. G2, for me, are a team that are they're a fantastic team. They were deemed as the super team, right? The super French roster coming into this. You know, everyone said, oh, they're going to just dominate for years to come, right? Pretty much. That was everything the bookies said, everything, you know, all the news sites said. And why not, right? You've got probably one of the greatest players of all time in Shox playing on that roster. Here's the caveat. I don't think Shox is a good in-game leader and player at the same time. Now, this is the problem. When you're so mechanically gifted at the game and you're such a fan, you know, you're a legend. We can safely say he's a legend, right?
100%, yeah.
This is the problem for me, is that you sometimes might get forced into a role you're not necessarily good at because you can do everything. And I don't think he should be in-game leading G2. Yes, they've made this final. I think this tournament was pretty much make or break for them in that respect. I think if they had flopped this tournament, we could have possibly been seeing roster changes. Obviously, Kiyashima, he's out of a team right now. But yeah, I mean, you can't argue the fact they're in the final, but would I have predicted it? I don't think anyone would have predicted. So, I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I definitely didn't see G2, especially with the form leading up to it, and North as well. But especially with North with the change, like Valdez, obviously an amazing player, but for them to get it together this early is quite surprising. Especially with teams like SK and Astralis, who, well, yeah, those are I would put those two as the favourites, I guess. SK, Astralis, and obviously FaZe, depending on how the firepower worked out. But yeah, I'm surprised to see G2 there. And as you said, Shox in-game leading. He's the worst in-game leader. The thing is as well, he's my favourite player from CSS. He's my favourite player ever, to be honest. Apart from
I'm
you,
sure there's, yeah, I was going to say, there's surely one other, right?
But yeah, essentially, out of probably the top 15 teams, he's probably the worst in-game leader, like, in the world. And his performance has dropped, and he's constantly bottom fragging, which is, yeah, it's not ideal when he should be the star in every team.
And I think that's something that we see sometimes, right? Is that actually sometimes people who are at the top of the game shouldn't be in-game leaders because it affects their ability to be what they are in the game, because they're having to think about other things. And it takes away from their ability to be able to do what they're really good at.
Yeah, the drop-off has been, like, ridiculous. Like, a few players have taken it on, but I think his drop-off has been extreme just because of how good he was. As he said, mechanically, he's arguably the best mechanical player. Like, when you watch his crosshair placement and stuff, it's ridiculous.
Do you think there's a better person on the team that would be better fitted to do that calling role and let him go back to what he's good at, which is just popping heads?
I don't. Here's the problem, and it's the French scene is much like the UK scene. Before everyone gets on their high horse with the UK stuff, like, we all know UK scene. We'll talk about it in another podcast, but. Here's the thing with the French scene. There's a lot of internal fighting, right? You know, there was that whole thing with Kiyashima coming back saying, you know, he's the problem. Yeah, there was a big meme made about it. And how many leaders have you really got? Existence is sat in LDLC. Would he play with them? I don't think so. And the reason is because I think the players on this GT roster doubted him in the first place with his style of leading. And that's why they made this team, right? And Shox, I mean, look, he finished +4, 46 frags, 42 deaths, 85.2 ADR in the game against NIP. And that's probably one of the reasons they were doing well, because in the very first games of Dreamhack Malmo, he was not having a good tournament, so to speak. And I think, how do you do it? I mean, maybe you bring in Kiyashima if there wasn't, you know, I'm talking purely on player roles here and take away all internal conflicts or personalities aside, right, when I'm talking about this. So maybe adding Kiyashima as that support player, maybe he could lead the guys and bring Shox back into that fragging ability role. But it's hard to bring up these points when they've just made a final. Like I said, I think if they had flopped this tournament,
sword, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah, it is.
In one side, you like saying, well, you know, they could do better, but on a retrospect, actually, they're there.
And it was a strong tournament as well. There's a lot of strong teams.
It's a strange one, right?
Well, I think if you like I said, if they had flopped this tournament, I think that would have been like curtains gone, you know, lights out kind of. I think they would have had to have made a change at this point, but
and I have to also say that Rourke, really nice wine. Really. Just to add that in for people watching the VOD. Anyway, I digress. Go back.
So we talk about Shox. Obviously, they've made the final, G2. Dan makes a good point. Could they bring in potentially another leader? I think maybe they'll still be looking at that at the end. But this brings me nicely on to Gambit. Now, Gambit, as we know, they won the major. You know, Zeus, everyone's like, yeah, we're going to stay together, boys. This is it. And then Zeus leaves for Na'Vi. Now, for me, Adren, he's gone, okay, right, what are we going to do? We're going to bring in Fitch. Fitch, very talented young player, but what's he done? He's gone and called. Now, I'm going to go back through the stats.
Adren's the in-game leader right now.
Well, yeah, and this is the thing. I'm going to go back through the stats. Every tournament he's in-game leaded. He's finished 3rd to 4th DreamHack Masters Malmo. 2017, he's played 11 maps and he's got -31. That's a rating of 0.97. And the thing that annoys me is we go a couple of events back when he's not in-game leading, okay, when he's playing on LAN. He's had a fantastic year. ESL 1 New York, quite a close qualifier, 1.12 rating, +14 overall. PGL Major Krakow, he finished with a +42. Yeah?
Yeah, he was ridiculous on the major. Like, absolutely ridiculous.
How
And
can
this
you-
is probably the first year that he's played at that level. Like, he's always been a good player, but he's never played at that level.
How can you let him, like, I mean, I can go all the way back. We can go WSG. I think it's the last 2 years. I mean, you see right from WSG 2016, he got +30 there, went on to the Adrenaline Cyber League finals, +48, and then everything's just green, +60, +16, +54, +90. Like, this guy, when he's not in-game leading, is an incredible player. Why on earth, when you've got Angel sitting in Hellraisers, you then go, okay, I'm going to in-game lead again, boys? Like, he's still got that talent, that skill set to be one of the best fraggers individually.
Do you think that's like the shock situation all over? It's like having somebody who is skilled doing something that is affecting skill because they're having to put their energy into.
It's a tough one. I don't know. I don't know why they went down that. I mean, we
Yeah.
can only speculate, right, Shawn, that maybe it was to do with buyouts, contracts.
Yeah, it could be. Because, to be honest, they brought in Fitch as well. And Fitch apparently used to call for Tengri. Fitch is also 25. He's not actually that young. And he's relatively experienced at a low level. That's the only difference.
Bro, when I want to hear somebody that's 25, man, and you say they're not that young. Sorry, mate, that just makes me, I just want to go curl up in a corner. You see the dog basket down there? I literally just want to lie in there and cry because of my age. Yeah.
How do
You were
you,
that age before.
this is what's so weird about the Gambit situation, though. They played DreamHack Malmo. I mean, obviously, when we did the one show, we did the odds breaker that everyone knows, touched on that side of things, and we all thought, you know, like you said, like we're saying here, Adren in-game leading questionable, right?
Yeah.
But then they make it all the way to 3rd, 4th, and what's bizarre to me about this tournament is like they came through. Yeah, they beat FaZe, and then they beat Astralis, right? FaZe
2-0.
yeah, and then they lose to North. Out of all the teams that they should be losing to, I didn't think that. Right,
But
like
do you
today.
do you not think though? I mean, yeah, they made it through, and even against the games when I was watching against FaZe, like it seemed chaotic in their approach of the way they was doing things, and they actually won by just gritting teeth and going through like repetitive strategies. They just decided towards the end they just kept going B on nuke, like so. For me, I kind of looked at it like, well, they could do better.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Whilst they won,
Yeah.
and they achieved what we believed they would achieve. I mean, you floated it originally as a 2-0 opposed to a 2-1.
Yeah.
Because on paper, against the people that were just bought to play, they should have won. But because of, like you say, the calling and the other stuff, maybe they weren't as good as we expected to be. And actually, maybe they could have achieved a hell of a lot more had they had the right person behind them.
This is the thing. This is why I said on the analysis desk when we did our segment on, well, it's Friday, right? The reason I went against all of the analysis at DreamHack Malmo is because everyone looks at FaZe and they go, on paper, got Olaf Meister, former best player in the world.
Team.
Yeah, former best player in the world. He had some time off with this wrist injury. He's struggled since that point. In Fnatic, they tried to make the dream come alive again and reform that roster, and it was like, okay, let's all get together again. You know, we can make it work. We can work through our problems because we're the best. Suddenly their style's not working and they're not the best anymore. That's 2 attempts they tried to make it happen. Didn't work. Olaf Meister, he goes to FaZe, try and find something new. It's almost like not blaming the Fnatic team problems for his performance, but he's trying to find anything to get that performance back, right? And I don't think this is the answer. Guardian, again, fantastic AWP, probably one of the world's best, if not the world's best.
Some of those shots he's been running are amazing.
But
Holy crap.
It's like when you... Super teams on paper are amazing, but this is the same thing G2 found. When you bring 5 people of that caliber together, they don't necessarily all become the best team because they've all got different ideas of what they want to do, right?
Yeah,
well, yeah,
Guardian had there was an interview with Guardian, so he was talking about his motivational issues and stuff, and he's had that for a year apparently, which is why he's been so poor with Na'Vi. He didn't want to play, he didn't practice and stuff like that. Like, I know this is a new team and he wants to win stuff, and you know this is the super team, as you said. But why would that change all of a sudden when he's on probably a hell of a lot more than what he was on in RV? You know, he hasn't got the motivation if he's got like twice the money now.
The depressing thing for FaZe with me is, well, like, okay, they lose 2-1 to Gambit. You know, they should have potentially lost Mirage. I mean, it came down to that round with Carrigan killed 2 as they jumped out B apps, and it pretty much scaled from there, right? Reset Gambit. And that's in my opinion, that's probably the only reason they lose that map on paper. Now, I'm just looking here at FaZe in general. I mean, this is what saddens me, is that they failed the major. Okay,
yeah,
that's okay. I mean, in terms of, for them, obviously that's crushing, right? But if you look at their past results coming into the major, they finished like top 4 at the last 4 events. So why would you change that?
Yeah, especially when they added obviously Nico and stuff, and they got to the finals against Astralis a couple of times, stuff like that. Yeah, they've just, that's the problem. Who drops down to support player? That's what I can't see. How, like, at some point there's going to be arguments. Who's the support player?
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. Look here, FaZe with Alu, Keo, IEM Katowice 2nd, 2017. They win SLR I-League Star Series Season 3. They come 2nd IEM Sydney 2017, 2nd ECS Season 3 finals. Now, we all remember that game versus SK. They should have actually taken it. SK just pulled it out the bag when pretty much the game was done and dusted, right? It came down to that force buy. They just fluffed their lines, and then they made that huge comeback on Train after being down like 13-2. Okay, we could potentially look at that, and we could say, okay, 2nd IEM Katowice, 1st. That could be another 1st at ECS Season 3. ESL 1 Cologne, we come 3rd. So I'm talking like, that's 5 events.
Good run.
5 events, we finished top 4, and we changed roster. Like, come on.
Yeah. But you know, it's going to be because obviously as well, like, I've probably taken quite a bit of grief for saying this, but Alu's not a bad AWPer, and people give him too much shit for his AWPing. He isn't a flashy AWPer, that's fine. He's not going to hit the Guardian shots, but he was fairly consistent in their run. All right, I think he had a bad tournament just before they got rid of him, but that was one tournament. It's the same with Keo. One bad tournament, and they think, you know what, or you know, maybe 2. They decide that those 2 need to go because they're not stars, essentially.
Yeah, and like I say, like my host at Unicorn, James Banks, he says that Ali's very relaxed in his approach to life and the game in general. So sometimes it might seem like he almost doesn't care. I mean, he obviously does, but I mean, what more can you say about FaZe? I don't know. I'm not convinced on the superstar roster. Yes, it's potential there for it to be very good, but I just think I don't think this was the answer, especially when you finish top 4 in the last 5 events, and these are all big events. Like,
yeah, you changed nearly twice the amount of like half your squad. Sorry, you're changing out 2 of them. That's it's a big change.
So I just see Anton putting on my tank top. So we've touched on Gambit, we've touched on FaZe. Obviously, we've gone in there. Oh, we spoke about G2. Now, I guess we can talk about North Valde.
Yeah.
I mean, like, this guy was removed from Heroic. He had fantastic performances for months. He got removed. Fetish came in as coach. He was pretty much cut straight after that. I don't know whether it's internal conflict, internal motivation. Bear in mind, this guy sits out then. He sits out for a couple of months, laying it back. He doesn't really know what he's going to do. He's coming to North, first event. Everyone kind of knew it was happening. They're in the grand final now. Is this the honeymoon period? Is he living up to performance? I mean, take a look at his results here as an individual. I think he's actually one of the better performers of the tournament. Config's having a fantastic tournament as well for North. That could be a factor in it. You know, like I say, this honeymoon period. But right now he's at plus 24, 1.20 rating. So, I mean, you know, what can you really say about that?
Yeah, to be honest, obviously I think everyone knew that was the move that was coming when they got rid of Magisk. I mean, there was a lot of surprise around it, but Magisk had been playing quite poorly for a while now. And obviously he's quite young, so he seems a bit temperamental. When he's hyped, he was sick, but the problem is there wasn't enough of that recently. And Config is the better young player. Obviously, they can't get rid of AZ, even though AZ hasn't really been that good because he's obviously had to drop down to a support player. Cajun B's a good AWPer, nothing special, an MSL in-game leader. So, yeah, I guess it was the obvious choice. And to be honest, like, I think it might be the honeymoon period because they had this last time. I can't remember what tournament they won towards either the start of last year or something like that. And everyone thought this is where they finally arrived. And to be honest, they were poor, really, really poor.
Yeah, I mean, like, we go back to 2016. He had a plus 68 when Heroic won IGL 2016 Grand Finals. Just looking up from there, he dipped off for 2 events, ECS Season 2 and then Dreamhack Masters Las Vegas. But then from there, it's pretty much green. Dreamhack Astro Open League Leipzig plus 20, IM Katowice Open Qualifier plus 43. Like, he was putting up numbers. I never think it was... this is what leads me to believe it was never a problem with in-game ability. Maybe it was some conflict internally between Heroic and him.
But, yeah, because he's quite young, isn't he? I think.
Yeah, I mean,
fairly new to the scene as well, like compared to a lot of the other players.
I mean, he's 22, so he's not as young as Simple, for example. But you say so far so good, right? But I think I think
Cajun B has to perform though. That's the difference. They have. Now Valde and Config, it used to be Magisk and Config. If Cajun B performs like he has been, they're going to win. They're going to beat a lot of teams. But the problem is Cajun B is, and he's just not a star. And these performances do come in bursts of maybe like 2-3 months, and you might see him sit back and like low frag for like a few events.
Yeah. Well, my experience with obviously I play, for those of you guys that don't know, I played with Cajun back in MTW days. Source. I mean, he was a difficult character, but mechanically probably one of the best players I ever played with. I mean, he was a fantastic player. He was probably, when we beat Very Games in Copenhagen Games 2012, probably the star of that performance. Gifted. Yeah, he's very gifted. He was always on the emotional side, a bit like Moddy. I'll go out and say it. Like, me as a player, I was an emotional player, right? People who know me internally. That's often what happens.
Just a little.
Yeah, I was a fucking mess some lands, right? But this is the thing. Cajun B is one of these players, when he's confident and comfortable within an environment, he's going to do well. And I think now we're kind of seeing it in this event. I mean, he's already plus 22 for Malmo, for 1.09 rating. I think we're seeing that he's comfortable. Now, does this last? This is the thing with North, is can we make this last? If we lose this grand final, if we win this grand final, how far does this go? Because as long as it remains positive and they remain happy and comfortable with each other, I think the team has arrived. They'll do well. It's just what makes great teams is when they get over these hurdles. Like SK, for example, you know, they haven't finished where they really wanted to these past couple of events, but how will they bounce back? And I think that's what often happens with this kind of tier 1, but the lower of tier 1. They need that sticking power.
Yeah. As I said, I still think if Cajun B's at 3rd star, they've pretty much got the perfect kind of balance. As I said, like MSL has a tendency to low frag, which can be a little bit of an issue. But I guess if 3 of them are stepping up and AZ does his job, they possibly. I still just don't believe it just yet. I guess I need to see a few more events from them, just because obviously I said I've seen it before. They won a tournament and every commentator, caster, analyst was going, this is it. This is their time now. They're going to be a top 3 team, and they dropped off like big time.
I guess the next team then is Na'Vi. Oh no, carry on.
No, I was just going to say, for me, as somebody who looks on and now I'm a bit of the aged. I'm a bit older than you guys. Like I don't key into as much tournaments as I used to. But I just feel that in esports in general, or within CS in general, it's going a bit like how the UK scene kind of went. Not from a negative perspective where we used to flame each other all the time and stuff like that, but this whole transfer thing, I think it damages some of the team's abilities to be able to gel. Like back when in CSS and early days of CSGO with Vary Games and NIP, and we had Fnatic and all these different teams where they'd actually be the same team for freaking years. You know what I mean? And the individual skill set might not always be there, but they'd spend so much time together that they knew each other back to front and how to deal with stuff. I feel that now, like, because there's so much money involved, people are paying for transfers and going left, right, and centre. And actually, they don't have the ability to gel with each other long enough to create these actual teams that, at the moment, one team that wins one tournament might not win the next one. Whereas back when, back in the day when we used to be heavily involved in it, like you could not more or less guarantee, but there was a very high chance who was going to be placing second and first.
I think that's down to like CSGO being quite random as well, with making every gun viable, right? But that aside,
it's the money, it's the transfer system.
Yeah,
like, it's almost getting like football.
I don't. This is why I couldn't play towards the end. I'm not saying if it was different, I would have been a major player or one of these amazing players now, but this is what didn't settle well for me. Obviously, people know with my OCD and things, like this unpredictability. Like you could be in a team that's doing amazing, and then someone just comes in like, "I'm going to buy you," and then people are like, "Yeah, sure." There's no loyalty in that sense.
That's what I mean. But I think that's damaging.
Like, I think it's damaging as well.
I think it's damaging to the actual thing, and I can only liken it. It's not quite there yet, but like with the transfer system involved in football, like look what happens when like how France was talking about having CS in the Olympics or like esports in the Olympics, stuff like that. Like, what's going to happen to localized teams? People are going to end up. They're so busy buying out players that the localized teams or whatever they've originally built aren't good enough. They're not strong enough because the money's so big now. They're just buying players from left, right, and center, expecting them to go together and having this dream team. I mean, you can even like
that's what's happening with like
with FaZe.
Well, with like Rops, for example, he's Estonian. Any up and coming player now who gets seen is aiming for that international thing or that big paycheck. They instantly get given the offer and go. There's no like local. That's why our scene's struggling a lot, the UK scene. And I mean, the Swedish and Danish scene always thrive because they got such talent, right? It's very ingrained in their culture as well. Esports, like you got to remember, UK esports is still kind of a taboo thing. In some respects, obviously Gfinity helping that. It's on BBC now, but going back to the point, it's like some of these like Sweden. I could never play in Sweden, right? Because everyone is basically forming teams to try and get a spot on Godsent, Fnatic, or NIP. And it's like, how do you turn up for practice, but 6 hours every day just to be like, everyone's basically playing for themselves? Like, for me, it's such a hard concept to grasp. That's why
it doesn't promote teamwork, does it?
No.
It's all. I mean, like the thing about being a team as well, and you know this more than most people, George, is that like you're gonna have your arguments in a team, but then through those arguments, you kind of build relationships, and you kind of and things get worked out, and the team grows. How much do you have that when every time you have an argument, you know that the person could just be out the door of the team? It's gonna strangle teams building relationships. It's just the wrong atmosphere.
You lose a tournament and the manager goes, well, actually, you know what? Who was at fault here? Oh, this one, right? I'm going to swap him out for somebody else.
How would you like to feel? How would you feel playing in that tournament, knowing that, like, if you made a simple mistake, your ass is on the line?
Well, this is the way you go back to the UK scene. I mean, like, we, believe it or not, like, we used to fucking argue all the time in MTW. We used to argue all the time in all the top UK teams. Like, there was times where, like, me and Henry G wanted to beat each other's heads in, or me and Husey, or me and Rich Gibbs, like when I was in London Mint. There's all these times, but like at the same time, we almost always try to work it out, and that's the difference. Now, kids, they don't have that sticking power. They just go, fuck it, I'm off. Fuck it, I'm off. Like, or make another team.
You know what? As well, like on a flip side, obviously not from a pro perspective, but as a parent to somebody who plays CS, well, that's all he sees. Like, he doesn't see like the concrete and the hard work that goes behind playing CS. Like, he doesn't see all of that stuff. He just sees people going, "All right, well, these are shit.
Yeah,
move them out and bring other people in," and that then becomes the rudimentals of what a CS team is based off. It's like, you fuck up, you're gone.
Yeah.
Like,
I think the perfect example from us is obviously Luzu or Luzu.
yeah,
I don't know how to pronounce it. What was
Luzu.
that? 2 years ago, we
Luzu, yeah.
spotted him in a
Yeah.
random like shitty mix, and he
Yeah.
smashed us. And then obviously he was
We
playing at the
said
top
to
of the
him,
UK
to his
scene. But
face,
how many times has he changed team in the past? What, 6 months since obviously George was in Endpoint? Like, I think he's been in like 3 teams.
yeah,
But he
with
didn't-
all his rating.
No, Luz is alright. Like, he went from Endpoint to XL, and he stayed there pretty much.
He's still in X. Yeah.
Yeah. He stayed in XL. I mean,
Maybe it's just been a lot of mixes because obviously
Yeah,
he's been in a few
LANs
mixes.
tend to
a lot of
turn
the
up with,
there was a
mixed
period where a lot of the players went to like a couple of lands, like Epic lands. But I think one good thing that's coming from the UK right now is that UK kind of FPL thing. They've made this league where they can all try and gel. I don't know if it'll work. I'm part of it as a player, but I haven't played a game yet. But I know, like, we digress. But I just think, yeah, I don't really. Obviously, this is always going to be the case, though, right? CS:GO has become huge. Like, the business involved in it now, the prize pools. When money comes, that side is all that instability of actually loyalty in players is always going to go out the window.
I guess if you look at Immortals, that's probably the best example recently. They obviously brought in Horvey, the 18-year-old, as a 6th player. No, they weren't putting him in the team, and obviously there was a lot of talk that KNG, Henny and Lucas all wanted to go their separate ways to make a team with FNX because of the 6th player.
Yeah, and
Steele actually
coming
spoke
in,
about it. Yeah, Steele spoke about it in the interview, and he was quite honest about the fact that there was a little bit of turmoil. So they had a fallout when they added a 6th player, and it's like that should have been motivation, not.
Yeah.
You know, they've just got to the final of a major. They're
So,
not getting replaced.
what do you think then? You know, before we kind of wrap up the Dreamhack Malmo, what do you think of the first off Na'Vi, and then I want you to touch on VP, because right now I think VP are done.
Yeah, Na'Vi. I just don't believe there's enough in that team. Zeus, obviously, good in-game leader. You know, he's got a good coach around him as well. That's obviously brought over, but he doesn't frag enough. Edward is a solid player, but again, you can't expect him to frag too heavily. And Seized, for his first tournament back with that cooling, you'd expect him to have at least put up, like, you know, some better numbers. So,
But
unless Simple goes off, I don't see. Well, obviously Flamey as well. There's one. I think Flamey finished on like a +21. I just don't see how that team can ever.
I'm glad you mentioned Simple, because like I don't feel he can ever go off in this team. And here's my theory behind it: is Zeus. He's so stop flexing your biceps. He's so regimented.
I'm stretching.
Like, Zeus is so regimented in his style, right? He's very set with Kane. He won't go anywhere without that coach Kane. You know, they've got their style, they've got the way they want to play. It's their way or the highway, basically, right? That was with Gambit. Pretty much, he leaves Gambit because they want to kick Kane. That's how tight their relationship. I don't know why. Like, maybe he saved his life or something, but that's the way it is. So he comes back to Na'Vi. We haven't seen Simple put up that performance like he did, like, until Liquid. And here's my theory why, and I mention it all the time on Unicorn. It's like, why do I feel Simple's like that? Because he's a fucking nutter. He's a loose cannon, but he's one of these players that you can't control, right? You cannot control loose cannons. No matter any sport, you can't control. But what you can do is guide them. And what I mean by that,
utilize them for their crazy.
Yeah, so what I mean by that is, like, if I was calling with Simple, I'd be like, bro, you've got the spawn to take a mid pick. Or, that's a bad example. Okay, yeah, on train. Bro, you got the spawn to take a mid pick. And he goes, nah, I've got the front spawn. I want to take an inside pick. You go, okay, man, you go for that. Why? Because you're guiding the loose cannon. You're not telling him exactly what he has to do, but you're giving him that option. And I think with Zeus, Zeus comes in and he just says, we're playing like this. You see it all the time. They execute it 25 seconds left every single fucking round.
They've gone back to that, haven't they? Yeah.
And it's like, I don't think he can be himself. I would love to see Simple. I'd love to see Hiko get the fuck out of Rogue, bring back that Liquid lineup.
I have to agree. You have to play
100%.
to each of your players' strengths. Like, and giving somebody like that a choice. So yeah, like if he chooses not to play ball and do what he wants to do, and he loses, then that's on his shoulders. But that type of player needs to be able to flex. I know I was flexing my muscles. I didn't mean to do it earlier, but they need to flex their muscles and do what they are good at. If you restrict them too much, they become. That's not their play style. They're not able to play like that. So actually, you're at a disadvantage because somebody isn't playing to their ability that they used to playing at because they're actually drawn or bad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think it's like I'm not convinced by the Na'Vi roster right at the moment. That's basically what I feel anyway. And
yeah, as I said, Zeus, Edward, and C's are serviceable players, but Simple like has to just go mad, and that's it. As he said, he has to be unleashed, and he's not gonna be, is he? Like Flamey's a real good player as well, but that's only 2 out of 5 that I can actually see making a step. But yeah, at the moment, I think it's going to be too regimented. As you said, when there's 10 seconds they're in the bomb site and it's chaotic, I have actually seen Simple. I think the other day I saw him pull out a 5-man.
yeah, the
last
1v5 on
Yeah.
Cobble. Yeah.
Which was ridiculous. But obviously, it got to a situation where it was completely chaotic, so he had to just go and do I'm gonna. He had to win it by himself. But we're not going to see that when you're executing at 20 seconds.
You know, I agree, and I think that's ultimately what's going to make or break Na'Vi. Can they control Simple enough, or can they get comfortable enough to push forward in these tournaments? Like, you see him, man. Like, he's such an emotional player, and that's good to have that passion and that fire. But you have to be able to play your own game.
You don't think maybe rather than it's how do we control Simple, or that how do we support Simple?
Yeah, well, and that's another point.
Do you know what I mean? It's how do we support a player like that? So, okay, he's going to be a bit gung-ho, but rather than try and get him to play ball, try and actually not work the team around him, but be aware that that's how he's going to play so that he's got some support if he goes and actually tries something crazy.
But
because that's what's going to inevitably win them the games, right?
Do you see someone like Zeus changing to that?
I just can't see it. Especially with the way he came from. Obviously, he's a bit power hungry, you can tell. And the way he wanted Gambit exactly his way, which was fair enough. You know, he took a bunch of lesser skilled players and obviously won the major. But he made Mo look like an incredible war for that major. But he's only probably putting him in the right situation. Obviously, he can't do that with Simple. He can't say you can only watch this spot or you have to hold your ground here. So I just can't see him like giving up that much power to say, yeah, Simple, you do whatever you like.
Yeah. Well, I guess the last thing we can touch on with the whole, I mean, we haven't really touched on Optic, but you know, there's nothing really to say about that right now. They haven't really got a clear-cut leader. They're not in Dreamhack Malmo, obviously.
Interesting lineup, but yeah.
The court's out on that one, right? There's no verdict been set. We haven't seen.
Freiburg is going to be the in-game leader, isn't he?
Questionable, because you know, I know Adam from Source, and he will be the first to tell you that he wasn't a top Source player by any stretch of the imagination. Like, the Swedish scene was pretty bad towards the end of Source, right? And right.
Well, they pretty much left it, didn't they? The Swedish scene.
We're talking about a guy who has had a lackluster performance on NIP, going from that to now he's in-game leading. Like, I would have thought that's the last thing he wants to do, man. I would have, if I'm him, I want to go into a new roster, find my form, and start playing again. Like,
yeah, he's got a lot of young players, obviously, like Magisk, HS. I don't know how young Mixwell is, but obviously, I know when he was put in the right situation with Stan and stuff, obviously before, Mixwell was a beast.
Well, yeah.
But I can't see how Freiburg's gonna coordinate the team.
You know, he's got a lot of experience now. Like, my opinion of Freiburg in-game leading is obviously from my Source days, right? And that's probably like an oversight from, because he had a huge amount of wealth and experience since then. You know, he went on that 87-0 hype with NIP. He's probably learned a fucking shit ton from Exist and Forest and Get Right. So maybe they're going to surprise us all and do well. I personally hope they do well, because I like all the guys on that roster. I think I would love to see Freiburg kind of revitalize his career and he's still hungry for it, right? He had options. I'm sure he had options to be an analyst, you know, go into that kind of role. But
So I have to plead my ignorance here, like 'cause I haven't been keeping up to speed with Freiburg. So is he actually playing or is he just coaching?
yeah, so he's moved to Optic Gaming now. They've got a European roster. It's kind of a loophole because they still hold their Pro League spot from North America, which technically means they have to be in North America for 2 weeks out of the season, I think it is. But they don't want to move to North America, right? So I guess you'll see them fly over. I don't know with the ruling of all that stuff how that's actually going to end up in the end, but
So in order for him to be in game leader, he's having to play as well.
Yeah.
Or-
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess that's actually interesting as well, because obviously with
'Cause
Malmo,
I'm wondering, you know,
the
like
coaching change.
yeah. The
Because-
coach. Sorry, Karen.
So, because I'm gonna say, like, what I've noticed with Malmo is actually coaches were allowed on, like the coaches
Yeah,
were
yeah.
able to be there, and be
So-
part of the team, as opposed to some of the UK lands, you know, like which I found we found pretty odd, didn't we, Sean? Like coaches weren't allowed on stage.
They
Like,
went backwards this land for some
they
reason.
went backwards. Coaches weren't allowed. So
Mm.
I was just wondering, and like I said, I have to plead ignorance here. I'm not as heavily involved in it, but maybe Freiburg, if his wealth of experience is opposed to being a player, maybe be a coach.
I still think he's I think he's mechanically
talent?
gifted enough to play the game. He just needs to find that comfort zone.
How old
and-
is he? Is he my age?
No, but people often refer to Nip as like that poison chalice, right? Because all the new players who came in eventually got removed, and I think they look good with Draken and Res now. They look good. I mean, I hope they do well. I like all the boys on NAP. I hope Freiburg does well. The coaching changes with Malmo are positive. It means now the coach can talk in freeze time rather than a set pause. Perfect, because it now brings in the element of actually having a coach. And this is what I wanted to say. Like,
we need to unify the rules. You know?
yeah, we do. We do need to unify the set rules, but I think it's like we mentioned on the Unicorn Show. James said Dreamhack haven't been given a major in so long. They've kind of just opted to change their rules, right? Without the kind of Valve set the official rules because they give everyone the major, whoever they want. Personally, I think the coaching rule is a much needed change. I think coaches need to have that impact, being able to talk in freeze time. But then I wonder why VP kind of fucking suck right now. If I'm honest with you, there's no way of putting it. Like,
Do not mention him.
You'll have to cut. Sorry, see that section there? Now you're gonna have to rewatch that and cut that bit out just so we stop flames.
fucking no. So
Yeah.
like going back to the coaching rules, I think it's great. I think the fact that they brought in the coaches so they can talk in freeze time, amazing. But then why do we have that problem with Virtus Pro right now? I mean, Cuban, wealth of experience, and to be honest, like with lack of, this is an 18+ show. They fucking suck the balls right now. I've got a huge amount of respect for all those players and what they've done for the game, but right now they're just not cutting it as a 5-man
They just don't
unit.
seem to have motivation, do they? They seem it's just everything. They don't seem to have any executes. As I said, like,
No,
none
it's
of them
just-
have stepped up. Like Snacks at one point, was it?
He was in-game
26.
leading and then not in-game leading.
Yeah, they're constantly changing that. Snacks was a beast as well for a year, and that's obviously when they're the best period.
Exactly, and I don't know where we're going to go with VP. I think they all can still play. I would like to kind of rule out this rule that when you hit 30, you need to quit playing professionally. I think it's bollocks. I think if you look through actual athletes, they hit their prime 28 to about 34. That's the prime. But in terms of that, I can't really say much more. I mean, have you got anything else to add to BFE? Because obviously, pretty much going to wrap up this section after it and go on to our little fun segment at the end.
Yeah, I think VP are fucked. I can't see how they come back from this until they change some players. Really, as you said, they don't need to get. It's not necessarily like Taz and Neo because you do need that experience. Because obviously Bialy's very temperamental. As we know, he's hurt his hand quite a few times punching the tables at lands. But
I never do that.
Nor do I. My keys don't go flying everywhere.
No.
But
George
Leon
does.
doesn't break his
No,
leg.
I fucking up.
yeah, I think they just need
Knuckles
to
look like
look
this
at who they can bring in because obviously there's some decent players. Obviously, Michu and stuff has always been one that's been mentioned. But do they actually just need an in-game leader, someone that's going to take control, rather than constantly switching every 3 months?
I think bring in Michu. I think maybe get Pasha out of there, get him onto a streaming career. I think find the motivation again, find that confidence. Basically, what's lacking is the confidence and cohesion. Yeah, that would be my plan for them. Find cohesion. Like, that's basically all it is. It's not about talent. It's not about leading. It's not about any of this shit. It's just find cohesion within that 5-man unit, and they'll find themselves the results again. If they don't do that, yeah, they need to change roster.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And with the coaching as well, you wonder how much that's affected G2, because obviously Smith's moved into the coaching role after getting a lot of grief, but he's also got a lot of grief for the fact, like, how G2 play.
I think,
has he had a bigger influence on this, or do we think he actually isn't doing too much on this?
I don't think. I think Smiths can be a good coach, but I think it's fucking hard to coach a super. That's opinion. I think.
Yeah, they're obviously very stubborn, which is why Shox is still the in-game leader.
He's obviously got his. I don't want to say too much about that right now. I think G2, they've been struggling. It's no secret that they've been struggling, but right now they're in the grand final of Dreamhack Malmo. We have to judge them in maybe a couple of months, see what happens. But
yeah,
I think the coaching rule will help Smiths a lot more, because he's going to have a bigger impact. It'll help all the coaches.
Yeah, again, one of those players from CSS that I used to love watching. Like,
yeah,
he was a ridiculous AWPer, but people don't remember this. Obviously, that's the thing. 'Cause it's so far away now. But yeah, the other thing is Apex has been calling on Mirage, and they've beaten teams like SK and stuff for Mirage. And if you've noticed, Apex has fragged extremely heavily. He seems to be the difference. If Apex goes off, it's fine. But if Apex doesn't play well, he plays fucking poorly.
Yeah, Apex is here's the thing with Apex. He's such an emotional person. It's no secret. You can smashing tables, fucking flipping desks, like. He's one of those players that if he's emotionally down, the whole team's going to struggle. If he's emotionally there and top fragging, G2 win. I mean, we can go back and look at their results. I mean, from the quarter and semi-final, I mean, he's had a good tournament so far.
Destroyed SK.
Oh, actually, and obviously the final's ongoing now as you guys will be able to catch that up in the future. But he, like I say, I mean, I'll get the stats. He's only 24. That's what people forget, you know. You think how much we've matured. I mean, Anton's now almost going on 45, 46.
Yeah, I'm 13 years older than the motherfucker. Holy shit.
But look, I mean, he's
24. I'm 37.
This is the event they're doing well, right? And he's plus 32. His previous events, minus 14, minus 13, minus 5, minus 3, minus 26. So, Apex needs to be on that performance if Shock's going to be in-game leading. It's as simple as that.
Yep, 100%. The way he plays run and gun style, it's not his fault. That's what they want him to do for Kenny S as well, obviously. But he has a tendency to die and not kill anything because obviously he's running through flashes and smokes.
I feel like I can reach down and grab the beer from your desk, George.
My desk.
Yeah.
Can we do a swap?
Beer.
Can we actually, like, hold on.
Let's
You
do
grab
it,
it, ready?
let's do it in the air. Shit, I'm below you on the thing, aren't I? So I've got.
Other quick one might be to mention, obviously, just Cloud9, and they've changed to Tarek as the in-game leader.
Yeah,
which I thought was interesting.
I mean, Tarek, Cloud9, again, pretty much like Optic for me. I think Tarek, good player. I mean, he was one of the best performers on Cloud9 this event. Will they be a great team? Don't know. Skadoodle doesn't talk enough. Heard that from past pros in the past. But again, too early to judge on Cloud9. I'd like them to do well. I think Stewie's a fantastic player. I think Automatic can be up there as well. It's too early to tell. Coming into an event with like a week's practice is not ideal.
Yeah, changing your in-game leader as well, because Tarek is relatively inexperienced, isn't he?
Well, yeah, and been around for a fucking long time, right? But like as an in-game leader,
he was a pug hero, wasn't he? Obviously, when he got picked up.
Yeah, as an in-game leader, I don't know right now. We'll see. I want them to. I would love for America. Like, I mean, I go back all the way to the days of Team 3D, kind of playing and winning. The WCGs. But I would love to see a North American team. Will they? I don't know. think the squad's got potential, but time will tell.
Yep, interesting one.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think we've pretty much covered everything on Dreamhack Malmo, the roster changes that have come up. I mean, I haven't really got anything else to add on that. I've had some fucking awesome discussions about it. Just going to be the
Awesome
second half of the
discussions
season.
in general today. Holy shit.
Yeah, I think it's just going to...
Pilot, bro.
I think it's just going to be the with CS moving forward, it's going to be what comes next, you know, in the second half of the season for the pro teams. Like, we'll have to reevaluate it in like December.
For me, George, it's quite nice sitting here listening to Shawn talk it out, because whilst I don't want to be so attached, obviously my circumstances, you know, very well has changed, so I don't have the time to invest in understanding it. So sitting here and listening to you to talk about stuff is an eye opener for me, as much as it is when I'm watching you and James go off on Unicorn about stuff. I find it quite, it gets me back into the ideas and thought process of how CS is working. Maybe how allows me to understand the meta again. So when I'm watching it, I know what the fuck's going on. So like, I appreciate sitting here and listening to you.
Yeah, and like I say, we're going to be doing this every week, guys. So honestly, just tweet at us what kind of content you guys would like to see. We have the option of potentially doing it live if all of our schedules match up. I don't know. Sean's got a girlfriend. I've got a wife. Anton's got 2 kids. Dan's got a dog. You know, like, so it's and a girlfriend as well. So it's all pretty hard to schedule in a live show, but we're open for the idea. And yeah, I mean, what more can you say? We've covered a fucking awful lot today. But before we go, I've got one last little fun section for everyone. As this is cat, I've got one last little fun section to go, and that's going to be N64. GoldenEye being the game we're going to talk about. It came out 20 years ago in August 2017.
20 years.
Obviously, would have come out in 1997, 25th of August 1990. Bear in mind, the N64 itself in Europe came out in 1997 as well, and in Europe it came out in March. So, to be honest, the way I want to start this off is, for me, the N64 is very dear. My grandfather bought for us when we were growing up. You know, we weren't really interested in PC games. I can remember when he walked through the door, and we used to go down there every weekend, and he was like, "Oh, I've got a present for you," and we're like, oh, "What the fuck is this?" Because before we were playing on the Game Gear, right? For those of you who remember Game
Streets
Gear,
of Rage.
For those of you who remember the game,
the Game Gear, that was like a handheld device, but you know, it's like the size of a fucking Africa. Like, you could hold it in between your arms.
not as big as an Atari Link.
Yeah. For
You
me,
can beat someone to death with it, basically.
for me, N64, I don't. This is probably the console that defined my interest in gaming. Right? We're not going to go too much into like a fucking stories on a split screen. Let's start with that, I suppose. Can you imagine telling your kids today and age, we're going to play a multiplayer game, but it's going to be a split screen on our one monitor? Like, can you imagine doing that?
I want to actually digress further. How old were you in 1997?
I would have been 6.
I was born 1989.
So when that came out, I'd already left home.
Anton was 27.
No, come on. I was 17 when that game came out.
I would have been. Wait, how the fuck do I wear that?
Do you know?
I was 6 and I was born in 90. So you must
Do you know
I
anyone
don't
that
know.
had an N64 that didn't have GoldenEye?
No, everybody had GoldenEye.
Did you honestly? Did you think of one person that you knew that had an N64 but didn't have a copy of GoldenEye?
No, everyone had GoldenEye.
It was
I
like the
don't know
default. Game.
anybody
It was
that
like
did.
it was almost like it was built in. It was just
Yeah.
like once you
Standard.
had that cartridge, you couldn't
To
be
be-
separated from
To
it.
be honest with you, I think the cartridge was welded into most kids' machines.
Yeah, it was.
Like
It
once
was-
that game came out, it was just stuck there. Like that was it. But I was 17 when that came out, so that shows you my age, motherfucker.
what was
17.
the what was the character that you weren't allowed to play?
Gotta be Odd Job, isn't it?
Odd job.
Everyone exclusively Odd
Wanker.
Job.
The golden rule. Odd job.
You know, I had a sleepover once, and we had a fucking big falling out. My parents had to ban the N64 for the evening because one.
That sounds like what my
It was like
you have to ban him for shit.
it was about Odd Job, and pretty much, yeah, what guns we were gonna play and stuff. And my parents was like, right, no one's playing shit. He's gone.
I've had enough about hearing about this odd
Little
job guy.
meltdowns upstairs. Right, no, banhammer. You're not doing it. Oh, mate.
It was a different thing though, because like I don't know, it really was an experience playing GoldenEye because all of you sat around, all of you with a pad, all of you sharing the same monitor.
You're all ghosting each other and shit as well. Like,
well, no, if you were good, you didn't ghost. You just paid attention to what you were doing.
yeah.
But like one of the things that amazes me about GoldenEye is how it kind of stood the test of time. Now I haven't played GoldenEye in a while, but one of the things that I will say
20
is that
years.
there was well, I don't know, but there was a club in Manchester called South. And one of the big perks, one of the big things that everyone knew about that club is they had a giant projector with an N64 and GoldenEye set up. So you'd have a full-on nightclub going off, and in the corner, everyone sat there playing GoldenEye. So it's just one of those games where it's just I think for so many people, everyone's got such a soft spot for that game. It's just fantastic. So many happy memories. I remember one of my mates used to live around the corner from school, and we used to jib out of school and unlock his door. Sometimes without him, we used to go into his house without him there, and we'd go upstairs and play.
House breaks.
There's a story. Yeah, his dad was a trucker, and there's a story amongst friends where basically on his truck route, he came back to the house. My mates Luke and Miles had let themselves in, and they hid upstairs under my mate's bed and his brother's bed. Yeah, and he knew he was there the entire time because they'd left their shoes at the door, which was even better. But yeah, that game, man. Oh my god, so many fond memories for so many people.
Yeah, it's brilliant. What's interesting as well is that they apparently didn't nearly put the multiplayer in. It was like a last-minute decision. They were actually going to release it without the multiplayer.
Well, GoldenEye originally was going to be a SNES game, right? And then they delayed the release of it on the SNES and put it to the N64. So can you imagine if we had GoldenEye on the SNES? It would have been like
multiplayer as well, which obviously defined.
Well, if you played fucking Mario Kart on
was
the
it
SNES,
the first game ever? Was it the first-person shooter with a stick? You know what I mean, where you can control that access.
I think it was.
It must.
Can you remember anything before GoldenEye where you could control like the up and down axis with? Not you mean with a D-pad? I'm sure you could do it with a D-pad, but with an actual analog
stick.
Yeah. Was that the first game ever where you had that degree of control? Maybe that was the thing that made it go off.
I think so. Because.
You mean on console strictly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been.
Yeah, it's close to it, at least.
Like, if you go back to the SNES, like, and you play, it was all side scrollers, pretty much, like the Star Wars. You remember Super Star Wars? Like that shit was lit. But Mario Kart as well. That was the whole screen would turn. It was just an illusion, right? Like you're actually controlling the individual car. So yes, it would have been the very first. It's probably
it was because before then, even though the PlayStation was already out. At that time, they never had analog sticks.
It would have been the most.
The N64 was the first to start introducing analog sticks on release.
Yeah, it would have been the most.
Yeah.
Safe to say, for me personally, as a fan, probably one of the most iconic console games coming out in my sort of period of growing up.
It was the game.
Yeah, I mean,
it was the CS or the World of Warcraft. It was just the game. There were other games, but
I can't think of another console that got. So here's the thing: I can't think of another console that got so many people together than the N64 back when we were kids. I mean, obviously Anton was fucking 18, right? Like, he had other priorities, but
dude, like no, we were playing Mario Kart on the multi-tap.
Anton would have been playing Conan the Barbarian on the Atari.
Dude,
you know, that was more thing.
No, I was. Fuck that. I was playing Alley Cat on the Atari 800 XL. Further back than that, Return of the Jedi on the Fleshfield keypad of the flipping Spectrum 48K.
What keypad? Sounded
Fleshfield keypad. It's the keypad were all rubbered.
Still sounding controversial.
What the fuck?
Mate, it's actually quite a nice feeling when you're using them. But mate, when you have to run everything off tape for half an hour, Jesus Christ. And then your mum tells you got tea after a runtime error, what the fuck?
Here's the kind of thing that I want to do for a section. Obviously now we grow up in the age of like our kids, well my kids, if I ever have them, hopefully I do, have, you know, they're growing up in an age where you've got fucking 100 meg down internet, iPads and stuff. I can remember the very first time I wanted to play a multiplayer game with my brother on the PC. I had to run a fucking serial cable. We had to drill a hole through the wall so we could connect 2 serial cables to a PC to play Duty. Like, kids will never understand the struggle we went through to play video games together.
Absolutely not.
Do you think the way it's gone with DLC now and PC releases, do you think we'll ever get that feeling back of, fuck me, like a feeling like we had with GoldenEye in anything? Do you think kids will meet up at their house and stuff like that we used to for this stuff?
No.
What about VR? What about meeting people in virtual worlds?
I don't think that'll take off.
I think that meeting people in virtual worlds will usher in an age where our kids will look at us and think, I don't know, like
VR sales are
how you ever did it.
already declining, dude. It's all declining. The whole
It's
VR.
not good enough. Go watch Sword Art Online when that's real. When you've got
pushes
immersive
boundaries,
VR.
But it doesn't.
Here's one thing I think VR is amazing for.
Just tell you this, Anton. When I'm retired, when I'm 80 years old, I'm going to be a wizard in an online computer game.
Here's the thing that I think VR is amazing for. Touching on mental health and stuff with myself and with other people. VR, I think, would be amazing for that. Like, for example, Pokemon Go, it got a lot of people with Asperger's and things outside interacting with the real world, right? I think VR could be another thing for people with difficulties, anxiety difficulties, and that to meet people. Reality-esque kind of environment, I think that's amazing. But in terms of like actual meeting up with your friends and going around and playing games, I don't think we'll ever get that back.
I wonder though if that we're looking at it from people of our generation.
Yes.
Go on.
I was going to say yes and no. So, as somebody who has a child who plays modern games, right? The problem is it's the same as social media and friendships. It's too easy now to connect to somebody without leaving your house. So, like, my son will quite often play with his mates, but he doesn't need to leave his house. Whereas back in the day, like, you'd go, like, even when I had the SNES, it was the same with you and your boys with N64. I couldn't wait to get my chores done in the house, dash out the door, ring on my mate's doorbell, him answer, go in, plug in a multi-tapper, start playing flipping Mario Kart.
Yeah, rock up with your controller.
And you're socialising with your mate, having cups of teas and drinks and everything else. It's similar to what we do at LAN, right, Sean? You're like just being around each other as opposed to.
Yeah, exactly. We sit there playing Worms. And
we sit there playing Worms.
It together.
I do think it's changed, and it's not necessarily a negative thing because it's just progression, right? It's evolution. It's how life is. Technology is becoming more and more prevalent in our lives, but I do think it's different in a way that I don't expect it to change, and I'm not going to force it to be any different. But it is different in the way that it's just too easy to sit there and not interact and just go online. It's like the people who I want to see on a regular basis. I know what they're doing in their life on Facebook, so I don't necessarily interact with them physically as much as I would do before Facebook existed. Like, you know what I mean?
Without getting too far away from consoles, I think in terms of like gaming's become really lazy, and what I mean by that is like when I was 12 and EverQuest came out, maybe 11. Like EverQuest was probably one of the very first social experience I had with gaming in it. Massively the first MMO ever to come out, pretty much, but like Ultima Online. Count that, we're talking 3D MMO. An epic quest was epic because you actually had to interact. Kids these days, they can just queue up matchmaking, queue up a dungeon in World of Warcraft. Back in that day, you had to fucking interact and build social relationships with people before they would let you in on a dungeon run. Or you had to, an epic quest was literally sat there reading hours of text from clues about NPCs sending you halfway across the... There was no fucking map in EverQuest, if you remember at the start. There was nothing. There was no mini-map telling you where the fuck you were. You were just like, well, you know, I've logged in here, boys. There's a tree. There's a troll. Could you help me? And, you know, it was actually... Yeah. MMOs back then created such a social environment, whereas I think the kind of the born of the troll kind of has come about since things have become so easy, right? Back then it was fucking difficult to play an MMO, so most trolls couldn't be asked.
I mean, we do fall foul of going back into like saying like, oh, back in the day in my time, just like our parents used to do, and I don't want to go down that route. But on the flip side, I do think that it's like how you touched on DLC earlier, George. like, because everything is so accessible, like games companies, whilst they can make things pretty, they don't necessarily put in the same level of attention into a finished product, because they'll just go, right, well, we can actually extend the actual worth of the game by DLC. EA, Ubisoft, Activision are all prevalent with it. I hate buying the games because I want to buy it and I don't want to think, oh,
this is what I'm worried about with Destiny 2.
$22.99 on a gold pack to get this other stuff because all my mates are upgraded, but I'm not. So like I can't, you know. That I think that's shit, and I think that's a bad side to the gaming that we've seen that's come out, and is actually really not so much for the PC gamers because we're quite hardcore, but for the people who are still ultimately console gamers, they're forced by that stuff. Like when the when online stuff changes and they go to the season pass and their mates go to it, but everybody's got to buy it. And I think that's shit. That's a shit model that actually damages gaming. I think it sucks. They've already got the season pass on the day that it's released.
Same with Destiny coming out, but I mean, so yeah, I mean, have you boys, Shawn, Dan, you got anything to add to that? Because it just makes me depressed thinking about it sometimes. But
I think that, no, like this conversation was probably had 30 years ago when people were staring at Pong, going like, "Where's the Pong?"
Yeah, Pong was amazing. Right? I still love it.
So where are we now? I think as much as you guys have got your skepticism, I still think that like virtual worlds are gonna. I think my opinion is that they're going to bring in a new era of kind of like how people converse with each other online. I think it's going to bring in with it a completely new set of like challenges and all these different problems. It's going to bring in all these different advantages as well. But whereas we're talking about, oh God, you know, we had to drill holes in walls to feed serial cables, and these conversations will be ongoing for a long time. The content might change, but I think as the esports industry continues, or the gaming industry continues to go from strength to strength, year in, year out, massively growing entertainment industry, nothing but kind of like cool things are going to come from it. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see the differences between, you know, how we all started out playing consoles and where it's going to be in the future, but it's going to be a cool ride.
I mean,
yeah, definitely.
I just have to say, I actually agree with you, Dan. I think it is important to embrace the future. You see, with the VR, I look at VR as like Formula, like as in they're pushing the boundaries and trying. It'll never actually be the concept of what actually gets released and what is day-to-day
it's all a work in progress.
Standards.
Yeah, exactly.
But they're pushing the boundaries to break the mold of what's gonna be available, what we can actually do. You know what I mean? So I think it is important to embrace the future. I suppose we're like old men with our freaking Zimmer frames going, oh, back in the day it was this good. But yeah, no, I have to agree with you. Like, I mean, must embrace.
So to round it up, I'm gonna put this out there. I want you guys to give me one of your favorite. Well, it doesn't have to be GoldenEye based, but your favorite N64 memory. And yeah.
I'm gonna drop a clanger here. Go on, I'll let everybody else do theirs.
All right, so I'll start. My favorite N64 memory would probably be, I'm gonna be a bit soppy the first stream. It's probably going down to my grandfather's on, you know, that year in 1997, him having the N64 already, and we sat up all night playing Mario 64 for the first time, and it's probably one of the last memories I've got getting emotional. It's probably one of the last memories I got from playing games with my brother and my grandfather all sat around the table. I've got nothing else to say, but I salute you, N64. I salute you, Nintendo. You're a massive part of my life, and I just hope they keep producing.
Yeah.
When I think back to being in high school, pretty much the first thing that comes into my head is like 4 mates sat around at Alan's house playing on the N64. So like I couldn't condense it down to like one amazing memory or one amazing play that someone made. But I think that just the overarching thing is just like if you get to a point when you've done something where when you look back at an entire period of your life and the first thing that comes up is GoldenEye, then you should probably kill yourself for having a terribly boring life. But no, but seriously, like that's how much it meant. You know, it wasn't about playing a GoldenEye. It was about 4 guys sitting around with a pad, shooting the shit. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. So yeah, there's not one memory. It's just that overarching kind of vibe of it was a great time to be around playing games with your bros.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
What about you, Shawn?
For mine, it was obviously GoldenEye is obviously the main one, but Banjo-Kazooie, if any of you guys remember that game.
I actually do.
which is a bear and a bird that comes out of his backpack every now and then to fuck people up, essentially. It was a weird concept, but my god, it was well like ahead of its time, because it's kind of that similar to Zelda in the sense that it's kind of like an RPG, I guess, because you're following a story but without any levels or like itemization and stuff. But yeah, you gain new moves and stuff. And I just remember that game, and yeah, I can't remember how many times I completed it, but my god, it was just weird but awesome all at the same time. Yeah, just a bird that comes out of the backpack and starts fucking people up, basically.
It was a rare game as well, wasn't it? Same as Thingy, Goldeneye.
Yeah.
Rare, the best developers.
Right, I'm gonna drop a clanger. I didn't have an N64. I was homeless.
What?
I was a hobo, bro. Around that time, I didn't have the money to have an N64. I was homeless, so I was always playing on my mates' ones, smelling of fucking shit and smoking weed. Don't do drugs, kids.
For fuck's
You turned out all right in the end, Anton. You got some.
I did turn out all right. Although, look at my eyes when I'm staring
About
at
to
the
say,
camera.
apart from the
They're
eye.
wonky. This is a lesson to all of you kids. Don't fuck with that shit. There you go. There's the clanger.
Public service announcement there.
Public service
Yeah.
announcement.
What a way to end a retro. Don't do drugs,
N64
kids.
was
It's
we
bad.
said-
was that. But N64 was still a part of my life. I played on my mates, and it was always fun. But like I say, I'm a little bit older than you guys. I was having that kind of four-way fun with the SNES, and I loved every minute of it, from Bomberman to Mario Kart. You know, it was the original. The Mario Kart was originally on the SNES, and doing the Rainbow Run 4-player split screen. You know, it was enough to cause fights in the living room. You know what I mean? When you bump somebody off, like because
Your mum would have
no
uppercut
walls on
you
the
there.
Rainbow Run, man. There were elbows getting thrown, all sorts of stuff. Kicking off, and like you said, George, man, we were getting banned from playing the game. I got chucked out of the house, of my mate's house. Like, his mum literally was like, "I don't want you in here anymore. You're causing a scene." I was like, "But your son's just flipping kicked me in the face because I popped him off a thing." She was like, "No, get out." So, you know, like, again, these games, whilst you loved your mates, that you got so heated when you were playing at times. And Nintendo had that. They had that playability factor that just grabbed you by your soul, and you couldn't let go from it. You couldn't wait to get home and smash it. Awesome.
I think one of the most frustrating games. We'll touch on it another time, but Hulk, the Hulk game on SNES, made me want to kill myself several times, actually, growing up. Luckily, I didn't, but fucking infuriating, to say the least. Throughout the weeks, we're going to touch on, you know, I haven't got anything else to add to today, but throughout the weeks, we're going to touch on. We're going to touch on loads of retro stuff. I mean, I've got so many stories I can talk to you about. The first time I played Resident Evil and promptly shit myself, and my nan had to take it back to the rental store and get me something a bit more soft.
The game, not the shit.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, on the 29th of September, the SNES Mini is released, and I have one on pre-order.
I think you're the only one who's got it. I don't even have it.
Yeah,
on
man, I
pre-order.
managed to get
I've
it.
not got it now.
Mate, I'm so happy, man.
They're
I
all
can't
sold
wait
out
for-
though. That's the thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
literally the day it got released, and I got one. I told my mate 30 seconds later to order one, and it was gone. Same stores, it's gone.
Well,
So I'm happy. I'll show off about that. You know, when it arrives, I'm gonna bring it into camera like this and be like,
I think, yeah, great stories from everyone. To be honest, this is probably going to be one of my most fun segments over the coming weeks. I hope you enjoyed today. To be honest, we got PUBG, we got CS in there, we got N64 in there. 20 years. I think a signing off point for me would be just salute Nintendo. Keep doing what you're doing throughout the years. You're a big part of all of our lives. Anyone sort of our age, anyway. And we're going to keep bringing you content every month. Every week is the plan. Sunday or Monday. I think next week we might need to record on Monday due to my work commitments. But like I said, tweet us, get involved. If you want to talk about something, if you want us guys to talk about something, even if at some point you guys want to come on the show, we'll set something up. Get your thoughts involved. We're going to try and aim to bring regular topics towards you guys. I've had a fucking blast today. I hope you guys enjoy the content of the first show. And really, I'll give the last word to Anton, Dan, and Shawn, because I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have.
"Hey man, I've had a great time." Yeah, I think you finished it perfectly. What you said is kind of summarised what my evening's been. It's been experienced. I've learned a lot. I've listened a lot. Talked a lot. What we want, really. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's been nice to talk about some passions and stuff and just do it in a casual environment, to be honest. And as I said, you know, boys know that I only get 5 to 15 FPS on PUBG, so for me, it's actually nice to sit back and watch you boys talk about it as well.
We're
Think
gonna
about
set
how
up
good you're gonna be, though. Think about how
We're
good
gonna
you're
set up a
be.
Just Giving page for Shawn. So like, if people want to donate,
You're getting top tips off Ollywood and Daz FPS. So you're gonna
No
the second
reason
you
to
get in
be
the
bad
game,
when I start.
you're gonna be tidy.
Just Giving, get Shawn a graphicscard.com. Let's go.
Yeah. And one thing as well is actually to say, you want a bit of nostalgia, you don't have the N64. There is GoldenEye Source as well, obviously. I don't know if you boys have played it, but it uses
Yeah.
a source
Yeah.
engine. You get a bit of the music, obviously it's not the same, but it's a good laugh and stuff with the music and the sounds and stuff.
Forgot about that actually.
Yeah. I remember when it got made. Time ago.
Well, what more to say? I think that's the end of our very first Out of the Blue podcast. I'm gonna go edit this shit together. Thank you very much for joining me, Dan, Anton, Rastaman, Shawn. You can see all their Twitters on the overlay and shit there. Once again, a massive thank you for Daz FPS and Ollywood for coming on the show. PUBG professionals. We hope to see you in many tournaments to come. I personally want to be at PUBG tournaments casting. I want the game to do well. Everyone here on the panel wants the game to do well. And like
Absolutely.
I said, we're here every week. We're going to be talking about PUBG. We're going to be talking about shit, basically. A lot of shit is coming up on the show. Retro, CS, anything you want us to get involved with. Just think of it as your place every Sunday or Monday to come and have a beer with the boys and shoot the shit and just enjoy yourself. And until next time, see you then.
See ya.
Layers.